My husband Camille apologized to me in such a Philippines manner, saying he got his mistress pregnant and we needed to break up. I was dumbfounded, and my affection for him ran out 6 months ago. Is the mistress someone I know? I asked. Yeah, it's Kyra. Remember meeting her again at Alice's wedding reception. Since then, my husband seemed completely unashamed. Alice's wedding was the year before last, so you've been cheating for over a year. Alice was a college classmate, and Kyra was a junior 2 years behind me. She was in the same research group as Alice, and we played tennis together in college, so I remember her well. She was nicknamed Little Devil behind her back and was quite famous in a way. Huh. Oh, is that so? Time flies when you get older. My husband just laughed it off. What on earth was he thinking? I can't understand him at all. I'm Viola, 30 years old. I met my husband in the college tennis club despite him being 5 years older at 35. He often showed up as an alumnus who loved happy hours, had lots of friends, and was friendly with everyone. He took great care of freshmen and was kind, but I later realized it was limited to girls after we started dating. I cried many times due to his cheating habits back then, but I loved him and married him right after graduation. But once I started working, I got to know the real him, or rather, his useless side. He frequently appeared in the tennis club's clubhouse, acting all high and mighty with the juniors because he was completely ignored by his peers. The truth was he was so incompetent at his job that he wasn't given any serious responsibilities. Even now, there's no prospect of a raise or promotion. He's just a pretentious good-for-nothing who can't do his job or household chores. I tried various things to change him after we got married, but his refusal to change made me give up. The reason I had to divorce him wasn't just that work was busy and it was a hassle, but also because his parents were good people, a reason that had nothing to do with my husband himself. So look, we need to split up quickly because of the baby coming. You can have this apartment, and I'll leave. That's the end of it, okay? I was taken aback by his careless words and my husband's sly grin. What? No way. Let's part ways cleanly. This is not a good opportunity. As I neared my 40s, I started wanting a child. I had graduated college and started working as a full-time employee. I found myself in a situation where I was earning more than my husband, and my company offered excellent parental and maternity leave benefits. I was ready to start a family, but despite our efforts, it just wasn't happening, and it broke my heart. The love I once felt for my husband had dwindled away, especially after discovering his affair and the news that he got the other woman pregnant. I was determined to cleanly and completely end the relationship. What infuriated me even more was his lack of remorse. Instead of apologizing, he simply voiced his needs and demands. It was evident that it was time to put an end to this unpleasant relationship that had dragged on for years. We would involve a lawyer, ask for compensation, and divide our property. And of course, we would expect something from Kyra as well. However, when I voiced my concerns about the financial aspect, my husband callously suggested that I take on the debt myself since it was his affair that caused the separation. When I glared at him, he relented, admitting that he might need his father's help to cover the expenses. I proceeded with the divorce proceedings and hired a lawyer. Despite multiple calls from my in-laws pleading with me to reconsider, I remained steadfast in my decision. Even my father-in-law broke down in tears, acknowledging that if I left, it would spell the end for him. My mother-in-law begged me to reconsider, expressing her love for me like her own daughter. But even they understood once I laid bare the truth about my husband's constant infidelity and laziness. Finally, they apologized profusely, hanging their heads in shame. They even paid the compensation in a lump sum on behalf of my husband, who had no savings of his own. They made him promise never to ask for their help again and to repay them promptly. I still can't fathom how such a careless and irresponsible man could come from parents as decent and responsible as his. I decided to retreat to my parents' house. The divorce proceedings, which I had anticipated as a hassle, wrapped up faster than I expected. Returning to my recently relocated family home, 6 months flew by. I found myself consumed by work on weekdays and occupied with household chores on weekends, leaving little room to dwell on my ex-husband. Then, out of the blue, my best friend Alice called, seething with anger from the moment she started speaking. Viola, did you know your ex-husband Camille and Kyra? They're living it up in a new high-rise apartment, flaunting their wealth everywhere. Kyra even had the audacity to invite me to her baby shower party. The presents alone cost over $100, and there's a $100 participation fee. It's outrageous, isn't it? She exclaimed. I was taken aback by the news. I hadn't realized that Kyra had given birth, let alone why she would reach out to Alice. Both my ex-husband and Kyra were well aware that Alice was my best friend. Why would Kyra even extend an invitation to her, knowing Alice would undoubtedly relay everything to me? When I tentatively mentioned this to Alice, her anger escalated even further. She did it deliberately, Viola. Deliberately. That awful woman had the nerve to tell me she's so happy now, thanks to Viola breaking up with Camille. Can you believe her audacity? She's the worst kind of person. I want to put her in her place somehow. Alice raged. That nickname from our college days resurfaced in my mind. Kyra was always known as the little devil, stirring up trouble among seemingly happy couples. Even when relationships were strained because of her involvement, she remained composed, wearing a facade of innocence. If a couple splits up just because someone else shows interest, it wasn't true love to begin with, right? They would have broken up eventually anyway, so what's the harm? She'd say, her words dripping with sugary sweetness, all the while smirking knowingly. I felt a pang of pity for Kyra, realizing she might never have experienced genuine love. Despite this, I knew better than to involve myself with her, so I made the conscious decision to keep my distance, at least for the time being. Kyra didn't matter much to me. There was something else that demanded my attention. Alice. There's only one newly constructed high-rise apartment building, right? Have you heard anything about them moving in? I asked Alice, seeking any information she might have. I've never met them, Alice quickly replied, but apparently it was very recent. They'd been boasting about securing a spot. Fortunately, someone who had bought one of the units had to relocate for work and put it back on the market without moving in. Ah, it makes sense, I nodded, processing the information. So, your moving day is Sunday, right? The baby shower party is on Saturday. You'll only need to be cautious for one day. There are multiple elevators, and they might use different entrances. You're right, we haven't crossed paths so far, so it should be fine. Alice concurred. We live together, but unexpected situations can still arise. As fate would have it, an unexpected situation did indeed unfold on Saturday. While waiting for the elevator on the first floor, I found myself face to face with my ex-husband and Kyra as they stepped out of the elevator. Hey, Viola, what are you doing here? My ex-husband spoke first, with Kyra chiming in. Viola, are you here to celebrate with us? You must be eager to see our adorable baby, aren't you? Kyra's voice was cheerful, her smile radiant, but her eyes betrayed a different story. They held no hint of amusement. What? Seriously, did you come to crash the party without an invitation? My ex-husband interjected, his tone incredulous. To scope out the high-rise apartment or catch a glimpse of our little prince. The casual reference to the baby as both baby and prince grated on my nerves. That's not it, I retorted coolly. I was just waiting for the elevator. I responded, consciously switching to a polite tone midway through the conversation. Camille was now my ex, essentially a stranger, and I didn't want to create a scene. So you're planning to visit my house after all? Camille remarked with a hint of amusement. You're so silly, Viola. Stop being stubborn. Perhaps you're just envious of our luxurious high-rise apartment and our adorable little prince. Do you still harbor feelings for me? Are you feeling lonely and longing to see me again? Camille, that's not acceptable, I interjected firmly. Regardless of any lingering emotions you think I may have, you're now married to Kyra. It's inappropriate for me to barge into your home uninvited. And as for jealousy, Kyra, you're mistaken. But I appreciate your concern. Camille continued, dismissing my words. Sorry, Viola, but Kyra and our son are our top priorities now. You're not welcome here. As I listened to their conversation, I couldn't help but feel perplexed. It had been 6 months since I last saw my ex-husband, and yet his mindset remained as irrational as ever. Kyra's attitude was equally baffling. It dawned on me that my cheating ex-husband and his new partner were a perfect match in their own peculiar way. Reflecting on it, I regretted wasting my precious 20s on Camille. I'm utterly ashamed of my past with Camille, wishing to bury those memories deep in darkness. If only I had ended things sooner without making excuses, I wouldn't have to endure this nonsense from my ex-husband and his partner. My words seemed to strike a nerve with Camille, who retorted, What's that? You're really lacking charm. Learn from Kyra. Even her jealousy is endearing. She's just given birth, yet she still takes the effort to look stylish for me. Don't you find her admirable? Not at all embarrassed, I replied calmly. I was simply going to the grocery store. I was dressed in a plain white t-shirt and jeans, clean and presentable. That's the problem. I grew tired of your simplicity. Camille snapped. Enough already. We have nothing to do with each other. Just go home. Annoyed by his dismissive tone, I retorted, actually, this is my home. Seeing their disbelief, I had to explain. I've been living with my parents in this high-rise apartment for 6 months now. My father was approached by salespeople when talks of selling the land he owns arose. They suggested that living in a high-rise would be more convenient, especially as he's getting older. While it's not entirely our land, we received a substantial sum from selling it. During negotiations, we were able to move into one of the higher floors for much less than market value. Camille was taken aback. You're landowners with that much money. If I had known, I wouldn't have agreed to the divorce. Give me back the compensation money. There's no need for a property settlement, I replied firmly. The compensation was a result of your affair, and the property settlement was a matter between us as a married couple. As I spoke, I noticed Kyra mumbling to herself, her silence speaking volumes. I caught it. I can't believe Viola is living in a high-rise. I thought I had totally won, Kyra exclaimed, shooting me a glare. But Viola, you don't have a baby or a loving partner, do you? I haven't lost yet. Look, Kyra, I was never competing with you, I replied calmly. In fact, I'm thankful to you for giving me the opportunity to break up with Camille. Oh, and I'm moving out of my house tomorrow, so I don't think we'll see each other again. What? Why? You just moved into a high-rise, they both exclaimed in surprise. I shrugged, explaining, maybe it's a matter of different values. It just wasn't a good fit for my family. I found living in a high-rise unsuitable for hanging laundry outside. There are no balconies on the higher floors for safety, and only some windows can be opened. It wasn't suitable for my mother and me, who preferred drying laundry and bedding in natural sunlight and wind without using a dryer. Plus, the intense sunlight made it too hot even with the air conditioning on. The building also shakes quite a bit during even a magnitude 3 earthquake. It's designed to sway to prevent collapse, and the higher floors shake more. It was terrifying. Most stressful of all was the daily elevator ride. It gets crowded during the morning commute, and it takes time since it stops on each floor. The advertised 3-minute walk from the station felt much longer in the elevator. We were too bothered by the drawbacks unique to high-rise living, so we decided to move to a regular house with a garden. After all, luckily, our apartment sold quickly at almost the same price we bought it for. As I finished explaining, both my ex-husband and Kyra grinned. So we'll never see each other again. So, a high-rise wasn't suitable for commoners like you. It's more suited for an elite celebrity family like mine, Kyra remarked sarcastically. I couldn't comprehend how he arrived at that conclusion, but one thing became abundantly clear. What I grew to despise and ultimately gave up on was that facet of you, pretentiousness without substance, and unwillingness to change or exert any effort. I reached my breaking point with you, but it's all right now. You're beyond repair, so goodbye, I repeated, echoing my ex-husband's own words back to him. Stepping into the just-arrived elevator, I glanced at Kyra, who was glaring at both my astonished ex-husband and me. Right before the doors closed, I added one final remark. By the way, are you sure the child is truly yours? My ex-husband looked utterly perplexed, prompting me to clarify. I mean exactly what I said, right, Kyra? You understand what I'm implying, don't you? As the doors closed, I didn't know what transpired next in reality. However, during our struggle to conceive, I underwent tests at the gynecologist's, which revealed no issues on my end. I began to suspect the problem might lie with my husband, but he adamantly refused to get tested. Hence, I delivered the incendiary parting shot. Later, I heard from a mutual friend who attended Kyra's baby shower. Despite boasting about their high-rise lifestyle, my ex-husband and Kyra were residing on the 3rd floor. Additionally, despite their extravagant demands for gifts and participation fees, only cheap snacks from the grocery store were served. When a friend voiced a soft complaint, Kyra reportedly exploded, demanding gratitude for the chance to see her baby up close and insisting on payment. This sparked a heated argument between my ex-husband and Kyra, leaving their gathering in disarray. Thanks in part to my earlier cryptic remark, it was revealed that my ex-husband and Kyra had moved into a high-rise but were struggling financially, attempting to swindle money from their friends through fabricated reasons. Their deceit caused outrage among their friends, who promptly left. Meanwhile, my family and I settled into a single-family home with a garden, where I recently welcomed an adorable kitten. Our former high-rise was embroiled in controversy due to significant defects and illegal construction methods, making it unsellable. Reflecting on our situation, we realized we were unexpectedly fortunate. Now, I find solace in my severed ties with my ex-husband and cherish the tranquility of my peaceful days. As I hang the laundry on a sunny afternoon, my kitten sometimes curls up on the clothes, its adorable sleeping face bringing me a sense of contentment. Today, like many others, was a good day.
I slumped back in the worn leather chair, the sterile scent of the clinic filling my nostrils as I waited for Dr. Henshaw. Doyle squeezed my hand reassuringly, his warm smile a stark contrast to the knot tightening in my stomach. We'd been trying for a baby for over a year, and this was supposed to be a routine checkup. The door swung open, and a flustered nurse bustled in, her arms laden with files. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Carter," she nodded, rifling through the papers. "Ah, congratulations are in order, it seems," she beamed at Doyle. "The little one is due in 7 months. Alara must be over the moon." The room tilted as the words hit me like a sledgehammer. Alara? A baby? My heart pounded in my ears as I shot Doyle an accusatory glare, but his brow was furrowed in confusion. I think you have the wrong file," he stammered, his face paling. The nurse's eyes widened, and she hastily checked the paperwork. "Oh, goodness, you're right. My apologies." She scurried out, leaving a suffocating silence in her wake. Doyle cleared his throat. "Marion, honey, it was just a mix-up. You know how scatterbrained some of these nurses can be." His words should have reassured me, but something nagged at the back of my mind. A tiny splinter of doubt that would soon fester into a gaping wound of betrayal. The drive home was a blur, the city lights melting into streaks of color as my mind raced. Doyle's reassurances rang hollow, drowned out by the nurse's words echoing in my head. Alara, a baby due in 7 months. As soon as we stepped through the front door, I rounded on him. "Who is Alara?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and dread. Doyle sighed, rubbing his temples. "Babe, it was an honest mistake, nothing more." "Don't babe me," I snapped. "I'm not an idiot, Doyle. That nurse clearly knew something I don't." His eyes narrowed. "You're overreacting, Marion. It was a simple mix-up of files, that's all." I opened my mouth to protest, but something in his coat pocket caught my eye, the corner of a crumpled receipt. Without thinking, I snatched it out. "Hey!" Doyle lunged for me, but I danced out of his reach, my heart pounding as I smoothed out the paper. Prenatal vitamins. The receipt was for a bottle of prenatal vitamins from a pharmacy downtown. I looked up at him, my vision blurring with tears. "Tell me the truth, Doyle, right now." His shoulders slumped in defeat. I don't know how to say this." "Try me," I growled through gritted teeth. He took a deep breath. "There's someone else. Alara. She's pregnant with my child." The words landed like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. I stumbled back, clutching the receipt like a lifeline. Doyle reached out to me, his eyes pleading. "Marion, I'm so sorry. It just happened. But I still love you, I swear." I recoiled from his touch, bile rising in my throat. "How could you?" I choked out. "After everything we've been through, trying for a baby of our own?" He flinched, shame flickering across his face. I know, and I hate myself for it, but we can work through this, I promise." Rage bubbled up inside me, scalding and all-consuming. I grabbed the nearest object, a ceramic vase, and hurled it at him with all my strength. He ducked just in time, the vase shattering against the wall behind him. "Get out," I seethed, my body shaking with fury. "Get out of my house, you lying, cheating bastard." For once, Doyle didn't argue. He hung his head and trudged out the door, leaving me alone with the shards of my broken heart scattered at my feet. The next few weeks were a waking nightmare. I functioned on autopilot, going through the motions at work while my personal life crumbled around me. Doyle had moved out, taking his things while I was at the office. A small mercy, I supposed. I didn't think I could bear to see his face again so soon. Still, the questions swirled endlessly in my mind. How long had this been going on? Who was this Alara woman? And why, after all our struggles to conceive, would he throw it all away like this? I knew I needed answers, if only to find some shred of closure. So I started digging. It didn't take long to uncover the truth about Alara Benson, a 29-year-old graphic designer at a trendy marketing firm downtown. Social media painted the picture of a vivacious, free-spirited woman with a zest for life, the perfect counterpoint to my own sensible, by-the-book existence with Doyle. A few carefully worded inquiries revealed that she was indeed pregnant, just over 4 months along. The timeline matched the nurse's words at the clinic, confirming my worst fears. Doyle had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. But the deepest cut came from an unexpected source, my own fertility doctor, Dr. Henshaw. During a follow-up appointment, he made an offhand comment about Doyle's other obligations, causing delays in our treatment plan. What other obligations? I demanded, my heart racing. Are you talking about his affair? Dr. Henshaw's eyes widened, and he immediately backpedaled. Mrs. Carter, I assure you, doctor-patient confidentiality prevents me from discussing Mr. Carter's private matters. But the damage was done. I felt a sickening pit open up in my stomach as the pieces fell into place. Dr. Henshaw had known about Doyle's infidelity all along and said nothing, allowing me to pour my heart and soul into a hopeless dream of starting a family with a man who had already moved on. I stormed out of his office, tears of rage and humiliation stinging my eyes. How could they have betrayed me like this? Doyle was one thing, but Dr. Henshaw was supposed to be on my side, guiding me through this arduous journey. As I sat in my car, the hurt and anger swirled together, hardening into a resolve as cold and unyielding as steel. They would pay for this, both of them. I would make sure of it, no matter what it took. Armed with Alara's address and a burning determination for vengeance, I showed up at her sleek downtown apartment building one evening after work. My heart was pounding as I buzzed her unit, half expecting her not to answer when a stranger's voice crackled through the intercom. Hello? I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. Alara Benson? My name is Marion Carter. I think we need to talk. There was a pause, then a resigned sigh. Come on up. The ride up in the elevator was agonizing, my palms slick with nervous sweat. What was I going to say? How would she react? The door swung open before I could think too hard, revealing a petite woman with tousled dark hair and a slightly rounded belly, the unmistakable curve of early pregnancy. You must be Marion, she said, her voice carefully neutral as she stepped aside to let me enter. I'm guessing this is about Doyle? I nodded mutely, unable to find the words as a fresh wave of hurt swept over me at the sight of her pregnant form. Alara sank onto the plush sofa, absently rubbing her stomach as she studied me with those soulful eyes. How much do you know? The question snapped me out of my stupor, anger flaring hot in my chest. Enough, I bit out. Enough to know that my husband knocked you up behind my back. She flinched at my harsh tone but held my gaze steadily. I had no idea he was married, Marion. Not at first. Of course he'd lied to her, too. Typical Doyle. I opened my mouth, ready to unleash the full force of my fury, but Alara held up a hand, cutting me off. Please let me explain. She took a deep, shuddering breath. We met at a work party back in August and just hit it off. Things moved quickly after that, but he assured me he was single, separated from his wife. I didn't find out the truth until a few weeks ago, when I happened to see a family photo of you two on his desk at home. My stomach churned at her words, the gravity of Doyle's betrayal hitting me all over again. Alara looked at me imploringly, tears shimmering in her eyes. I swear, Marion, if I'd known, I never would have gotten involved with him. You have to believe me. In that moment, as I stared at this woman carrying my husband's child, I saw the same hurt, the same anguish reflected in her expression that I felt clawing at my insides. We were both victims of Doyle's selfish lies. A twisted sense of kinship washed over me then, bonding us in our shared pain. This poor woman had been just as deceived as I was, maybe even more so. Slowly, I crossed the space between us and sank onto the couch beside her. I believe you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And Doyle is going to pay for what he did to both of us. Alara's eyes widened, then hardened with resolve. She gave a brisk nod. Tell me what you need me to do. The weeks leading up to Doyle's birthday party were a flurry of covert planning and deception. Alara and I worked tirelessly, coordinating every detail under the guise of throwing him a surprise celebration. Little did he know, we had something much more explosive in store. You're sure about this? Alara asked one evening as we pored over the guest list. There's no going back after tonight. I glanced around my living room at the cheerful decorations and gift-wrapped boxes stacked in the corner, all a carefully constructed ruse. Absolutely, he needs to be exposed in front of everyone who thinks he's this upstanding, trustworthy guy. Her jaw tightened and she gave a resolute nod. Then let's do it. The big day arrived and our plan unfolded perfectly. One by one, Doyle's colleagues, friends, even his own mother filed into my house, all eager to surprise the guest of honor. Finally, the man himself arrived, striding through the door with a bemused grin. "What's all this? Surprise!" we cried in unison, feigning delight as cameras flashed and people swarmed around to greet him. For a moment, Doyle just blinked at the crowd, utterly blindsided. Then his gaze found mine, and his expression shifted to one of wariness. "Marion?" "Happy birthday, darling," I said, layering on sugary sweetness as I crossed the room to give him a lingering kiss on the cheek. "We've got one more surprise for you." Alara stepped forward then, her blossoming baby bump impossible to miss. A hush fell over the room as realization dawned on Doyle's face. "You," he choked out, paling rapidly. "What are you doing here?" "Congratulations, babe," I said with saccharine venom. "You're going to be a father." Stunned silence hung in the air, punctuated only by a few shocked gasps from the crowd. Doyle's eyes darted around wildly, like a cornered animal. "Marion, Alara, please," he began desperately. "This wasn't how I wanted you to find out." A derisive snort came from the back of the room. "Find out you've been lying and cheating, you mean?" I turned to see Doyle's mother pushing through the throng, fury etched into every line of her face as she regarded her son with disgust. "How could you, Doyle? How could you do this to these poor women?" It was like a dam bursting. Furious whispers and accusations rippled through the guests as the truth sank in. Colleagues, friends, people who had trusted and respected Doyle now looked at him with contempt. I drank in every agonizing second, watching his world crumble before my eyes just as mine had weeks ago. This was karma, plain and simple. Doyle whirled on me, anguish and anger warring on his features. "Is this what you wanted, Marion? To humiliate me in front of everyone I know?" Meeting his gaze, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "It's what you deserve." The fallout from Doyle's birthday party was swift and brutal. Within days, news of his sordid affair had spread like wildfire, destroying his once sterling reputation in our small community. But that was just the start of his reckoning. I'll never forget the morning his boss, Richard Henderson, showed up at my door. The grim-faced CEO had clearly heard the rumors and demanded to know the truth. "Is it true, Marion?" he asked, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Has Doyle been unfaithful?" I met his gaze steadily, no trace of pity for the man who had so callously betrayed my trust. "It's true, Richard. He got another woman pregnant while we were trying to have a baby of our own." Richard's shoulders slumped, and he removed his glasses to pinch the bridge of his nose. "You have to understand, this is a family company with strong moral values." He trailed off, but I knew exactly what he meant. Marketing Millennial Solutions had built its brand on the persona of happy, wholesome influencers, the last people you'd expect to be embroiled in a salacious cheating scandal. "I see," I said, folding my arms across my chest. "So what happens now?" Richard let out a weary sigh. "I'm afraid his position is untenable. There's a strict morality clause in all our employee contracts. Infidelity." He shook his head. "I have no choice but to terminate Doyle's employment, effective immediately." Just like that, Doyle's high-powered marketing career, the culmination of years of hard work and ruthless ambition, went up in flames, all because he couldn't keep it in his pants. I should have felt vindicated, or at least satisfied that he was finally facing real consequences for his actions. But as I watched Richard's car pull away, I realized this was only the beginning. The lawyers came next, first mine, then Alara's. Turns out my dear husband's indiscretions had opened him up to a tidal wave of legal troubles on top of his professional disgrace. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, breach of contract, the charges piled up, each one another nail in the coffin of the life Doyle had so meticulously constructed. He tried to fight it at first, pleading with me to show mercy, to think of all our years together. But I was unswayed. His pleas fell on deaf ears. Alara, too, was unrelenting in her demands for restitution, adamant that he take responsibility for the harm he'd caused us both. In the end, the courts sided with the wronged women, awarding us both substantial settlements directly from Doyle's assets and future earnings. The financial blow was as devastating as the public humiliation, stripping him of the wealth and status he'd so coveted. As I watched the once confident, successful man slink away in disgrace, I felt an odd sense of hollowness. This was the vengeance I'd sought, the karma I'd craved, and yet it didn't bring the closure or relief I'd expected. Doyle was ruined, his world in ashes around him. But the anguish of his betrayal still lingered deep within me, an open wound that may never fully heal. In the weeks following the legal fallout, Doyle became a shadow of his former self. Gone was the cocky swagger, the easy confidence that had once drawn me to him. Now he just seemed broken. Not that I had any sympathy left for the man who had so thoroughly shattered my trust and our vows. If anything, seeing him reduced to a hollow husk only reinforced my resolve. He tried, in his own pathetic way, to make amends. Endless apologies and promises to change his ways, to be the man I deserved. But his words rang hollow, meaningless platitudes from someone desperate to cling to the lie of the life we'd once shared. Alara, at least, wanted nothing to do with his groveling. She'd made it clear from the start that she planned to cut Doyle out of her life completely once the baby was born, raising the child free from his toxic influence. I almost envied her certainty, her ability to simply walk away and start fresh. For me, the wounds went deeper, the scars of his betrayal an ever-present ache in my heart. Then one rainy evening, there was a heavy knock at my door. I opened it to find Doyle on my doorstep. Shoulders hunched against the downpour, a familiar hangdog expression etched into his features. "Marion," he said hoarsely, water dripping from his soaked hair. "We need to talk." Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, to shut him out, as he had shut me out of his life for all those months with Alara. But something in his haunted eyes gave me pause. With a resigned sigh, I stepped back to let him in from the rain. "Make it quick, Doyle. I'm done playing games." He flinched at my blunt words, then nodded solemnly as he followed me into the living room. "I know, and you're right. You deserve better than any more of my lies and deception." For a moment he seemed to struggle, Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. "I came to say goodbye, Marion, and to beg for your forgiveness one last time." I opened my mouth, a biting retort on my lips, but he pressed on, his voice thick with emotion. "What I did, there are no excuses, no justifications for the pain I caused you and Alara. I was selfish and arrogant, taking both of you for granted in my pursuit of I don't even know what, honestly." His gaze, those warm brown eyes that had once made my heart skip a beat, bored into me with raw sincerity. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Marion, and I threw it all away like a damn fool." I swallowed hard past the lump forming in my throat, my anger slowly ebbing in the wake of his chillingly honest confession. A part of me, the part that still stubbornly clung to the memories of the man I'd fallen in love with, wanted so badly to offer him absolution. But I knew that was impossible now. Too much had happened, too much trust betrayed. The old Doyle, the man I thought I knew, was gone, and no amount of pleading would undo the rift he himself had created. So instead, I simply said, "Goodbye, Doyle. I hope you can find some measure of peace for your sake, but we're through." His face crumpled for the briefest moment before the mask slipped back into place, leaving only a haunted sort of resignation behind. With a somber nod, he turned and let himself out, the door clicking shut behind him with a sobering finality. I stood there alone in the silence, raindrops pattering against the windows, wondering if that gaping void in my heart would ever heal. The months that followed were a slow, painful process of picking up the shattered pieces of my life and trying to rebuild. Doyle's betrayal had left me adrift, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the dreams we'd once shared. But I was determined not to let his selfish actions define me. I was more than just a scorned wife. I was a strong, capable woman who deserved a fresh start. The settlement from the legal battles had left me with a sizable nest egg, enough to finally pursue that long-deferred dream of opening my own cozy little bookshop. It seemed fitting, in a way, surrounding myself with stories altri, finding solace between the pages when my own narrative had taken such a dark turn. I spent weeks scouring property listings until the perfect spot opened up. a quaint corner storefront in a charming downtown district. From the moment I stepped inside the aging but sturdy brick building, I could envision it all. Overstuffed armchairs flanking a fireplace, shelves brimming with well-loved tomes, and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. Transforming that empty shell into my literary haven was grueling work. Between renovations, sourcing inventory, and handling all the logistical minutiae of opening a small business. But I poured myself into the project, finding refuge in the simple, methodical tasks that allowed me to push Doyle and all the pain of his deception to the back of my mind, if only for a little while. The day we opened our doors, I could scarcely believe how far I'd come. As I watched the first customers trickle in, marveling at the cozy book-lined interior with its plush seating and the inviting espresso bar, a sense of pride swelled in my chest. This was my life, my passion, profoundly my own, in a way nothing with Doyle ever could be. In the months that followed, the shop became my sanctuary, a cherished space where I could connect with others over the shared love of a good story. I savored the daily interactions with my patrons, swapping recommendations and bonding over the ability of the written word to transport, console, and inspire us. It was during one such chat with a regular customer that I heard the news. Alara had given birth to a healthy baby girl and left town shortly after, determined to start over somewhere far from the lingering shadows of Doyle's deceit. I couldn't begrudge her that. We had both been through the emotional ringer, and she deserved the chance to raise her daughter in peace, unburdened by the past. In a way, we were kindred spirits, joined by our shared trauma yet emerging from the ashes like twin phoenixes, reborn and resolute in our fresh beginnings. Though our paths had diverged, I knew a part of me would always be bound to Alara through the crucible of Doyle's betrayal that had ultimately brought us together. We exchanged numbers through the customer who had relayed the news, and a few days later, my phone pinged with an image, Alara cradling her newborn daughter, both of them bathed in golden sunlight. A simple caption accompanied the picture. "Here's to new chapters." As I traced the curve of the tiny infant's face, I felt a profound sense of release wash over me. Like Alara, I too was turning the page and allowing the hurt to finally begin fading. Our story may have started in darkness and deception, but we had both found the courage to rewrite our own endings, this time on our own terms. The tension hung thick in the air as I took my usual seat at the worn oak table, steeling myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. Ronan's cold, distant gaze never wavered as he folded his hands on the scarred tabletop, the setting sun filtering through the kitchen window, casting an eerie glow on his features. "Alara, we need to talk," he began, his voice carefully measured, devoid of any warmth or emotion. My stomach churned with dread, but I remained silent, waiting for the inevitable. I'm leaving you," Ronan said, the words cutting through the oppressive silence like a knife. I stared at him, stunned, as his next words shattered the fragile veneer of our marriage. "I'm in love with someone else. Celeste. She's pregnant, and we're going to start a new life together." The air left my lungs in a rush, and I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles turning white. Ronan, my husband of 10 years, the man I had built a life with, was abandoning me. For her. A woman young enough to be his daughter, who had wormed her way into our lives under the guise of a perfect, doting partner. "How could you do this to me?" The words escaped my lips in a hoarse whisper, laced with a mixture of disbelief and anguish. "After everything I've sacrificed for you, for your mother." Ronan's eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features. "Don't make this about you, Alara. This is about my happiness, something I haven't had in a very long time, thanks to you." I recoiled as if he had struck me, the pain of his callous words searing through my chest. "Your happiness?" I spat, my voice rising with each word. "What about my happiness? What about the life we built together?" Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. "That life was nothing but a burden. You constantly nagged me about our finances, about starting a family. I couldn't take it anymore. Celeste understands me in a way you never did." Margot, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward, her frail frame trembling with barely contained fury. "How dare you, Ronan? Alara has devoted herself to this family, to caring for you and me, and this is how you repay her? Ronan's jaw tightened, his gaze flickering to his mother, a spark of defiance in his eyes. "Stay out of this, Mother. This is between Alara and me." "No, Ronan," I interjected, my voice steady despite the maelstrom of emotions raging within me. "This affects all of us. How could you do this? How could you just throw everything away?" Ronan's lips curled into a cold, humorless smile. "Because I can. Because I'm done. I'm leaving, Alara, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." With those final words, he rose from his chair and strode out of the kitchen, leaving me and Margot in stunned silence. I stared at the empty doorway, my mind racing, the weight of his betrayal threatening to crush me. But even as the tears threatened to spill, I knew one thing with certainty. I would not go down without a fight. The minutes after Ronan's bombshell announcement felt like an eternity. Margot and I sat in stunned silence, the air thick with a mix of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. But in the midst of the chaos, a spark of determination ignited within me. "We can't just let him do this," I said, turning to Margot, my voice laced with resolve. "There has to be something we can do." Margot's eyes narrowed, a glimmer of steel in her gaze. "Oh, there is, my dear. That boy has always been reckless, thinking he can get away with anything, but this time he's gone too far." I watched as Margot's fingers tightened around the armrest of her chair, her knuckles turning white. I always knew that Celeste was trouble, the way she wormed her way into our lives, acting all sweet and innocent. But I saw right through her facade. "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward. That Margot let out a weary sigh. There were little things, little clues that didn't add up. The way she would always steer the conversation away from her past, the expensive gifts she would lavish on Ronan. I had my suspicions, but I never imagined it would come to this. I felt a surge of hope. If Margot had noticed something off about Celeste, maybe there was a way to uncover the truth and use it against Ronan and his mistress. "We need to dig deeper," I said, determination etching itself into my features. "I won't let him do this to us, to me. Not without a fight." Margot nodded, a grim expression settling on her face. "Then that's exactly what we'll do. I may be old, but I still have a few tricks up my sleeve." Over the next few days, Margot and I set to work, scouring through every piece of information we could find on Celeste. We combed through her social media profiles, her financial records, anything that might give us a clue about her true nature. And then, just as we were about to give up, we stumbled upon a bombshell. "Alara, look at this," Margot said, her voice trembling with a mix of shock and triumph. She thrust a stack of papers into my hands, and as I pored over the documents, I felt my breath catch in my throat. "This can't be real," I whispered, my fingers trembling. "Celeste she's involved with a criminal organization?" Margot nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. "It seems our dear Ronan has gotten himself tangled up with some very dangerous people, and if we play our cards right, we can use this to our advantage." I looked up at Margot, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. "You mean we can get back at them? Make them pay for what they've done?" Margot's lips curled into a grim smile. "Exactly, my dear. And I know just the person who can help us." With that, she reached for the phone, her fingers dancing across the keypad. I watched, a sense of anticipation and trepidation building within me. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. Ronan and Celeste would not get away with this. Not if I had anything to say about it. The phone call Margot made that day proved to be a turning point in our quest for justice. Within a matter of hours, a well-dressed, nondescript man named Everett arrived at our doorstep, his sharp eyes scanning the room with a calculating gaze. "So you've got a problem with your son-in-law and his girlfriend, Everett said, his deep voice carrying a hint of amusement. "Sounds like you ladies could use a little professional help." Margot wasted no time in laying out the details, her voice laced with barely contained fury. "That scoundrel has betrayed my daughter, drained our savings, and is now running off with some harlot who's involved with a criminal organization. We want him to pay for what he's done." Everett's eyebrows rose slightly, and he turned his gaze to me. "And what about you, Miss Alara? Are you ready to play hardball?" I met his stare with unwavering determination. "I am. Ronan has taken everything from me. My marriage, my financial security, my future. I want him to pay for his deceit, and I want Celeste to go down with him." Everett's lips curled into a slight smile. Good, then let's get to work. Over the next few weeks, Everett proved to be a formidable ally. With his connections and expertise, he swiftly uncovered the truth about Celeste, her involvement with a notorious criminal syndicate, her elaborate web of lies and manipulation. This Celeste woman is no ordinary mistress, Everett said, his eyes narrowing as he pored over the documentation. She's using Ronan as a pawn, siphoning his resources to fund her organization's nefarious activities. Margot let out a harsh laugh. I knew that little viper was up to no good, and Ronan the fool has fallen right into her trap. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction at the revelation. So, what do we do now? How do we bring them down? Everett's gaze hardened. We take them out, one piece at a time. First, we need to expose Celeste's true nature to Ronan, shatter the illusion he's living in. Then we start chipping away at his career and finances until he has nothing left. Margot leaned forward, her eyes glinting with determination. And what about Celeste's criminal connections? Surely we can use that against her. Everett nodded. Absolutely. I have a few ideas on how we can disrupt her organization's operations, sow discord among her partners. That should make her very, very uncomfortable. As Everett outlined his plan, I felt a surge of anticipation. Ronan and Celeste had underestimated us, thinking they could get away with their betrayal. But they were wrong. We had the upper hand now, and I was more than ready to use it. Let's do it, I said, my voice firm. I want them to pay for what they've done. I want them to feel the same pain and humiliation that they've inflicted on me. Everett's smile widened. Then let's get to work, ladies. This is going to be a wild ride. With that, we dove headfirst into our carefully crafted scheme, determined to bring Ronan and Celeste's world crashing down around them. I may have been the victim, but now I was the one holding all the cards. The evidence Everett had uncovered was a powerful weapon, and we wasted no time in putting it to use. With a newfound sense of purpose, Margot and I confronted Ronan, ready to unleash the full force of our carefully orchestrated plan. Ronan's face twisted into a sneer as I laid out the damning details before him. You think a few papers are going to scare me, Alara? I hold all the cards here. Celeste and I are going to start a new life together, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. I felt a surge of anger at his arrogance, his blatant disregard for the pain he had caused. Oh, Ronan, you have no idea what you're up against, I said, my voice dripping with cold fury. Celeste isn't who you think she is. She's been using you, siphoning your resources to fund her criminal activities. Ronan's eyes widened briefly, but his expression quickly hardened. You're lying. Celeste loves me, and she would never do something like that. Wake up, Ronan, Margot interjected, her frail frame trembling with barely contained rage. Your precious Celeste is nothing more than a snake in the grass, and you're the one who's been fooled. Ronan's jaw tightened, and he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. You two are grasping at straws. Celeste and I are going to be together, and there's nothing you can do about it. I met his gaze unflinchingly, a steely determination burning in my chest. Oh, we can do plenty, Ronan, and we will. You've taken everything from me. My marriage, my financial security, my future. Now it's time for you to pay. Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. You're delusional, Alara. You think you can just waltz in and ruin my life? I hold all the power here. Celeste and I are going to live happily ever after, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. I felt a surge of disgust at his arrogance, his complete disregard for the pain he had caused. You're wrong, Ronan. We have the evidence to expose Celeste's true nature, and we're going to use it to bring you both down. Ronan's expression darkened, and he leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming against the table. Go ahead, Alara. Do your worst, but I promise you, you'll regret it. With that, he stood and strode out of the room, leaving Margot and me in stunned silence. But as the door slammed shut behind him, I felt a newfound determination settle in my bones. Well, Alara, Margot said, her voice laced with a hint of pride, it seems we've struck a nerve. I nodded, a grim smile tugging at the corners of my lips. Yes, we have, and now it's time to put our plan into action. Over the next few weeks, Margot and I, with Everett's guidance, set our plan in motion. We meticulously dismantled Ronan's carefully constructed facade, exposing his affair and financial misdeeds to his employer, leading to his dismissal. We used social engineering to sow discord between Ronan and Celeste, planting seeds of doubt that slowly eroded their relationship. And all the while, Ronan remained unaware of the full scope of our plan, his arrogance blinding him to the impending doom that was about to descend upon him. As the weeks passed, I watched with a grim satisfaction as Ronan's carefully constructed world began to crumble around him. With Everett's guidance and Margot's unwavering support, I systematically dismantled every aspect of Ronan's life, leaving him desperate and powerless. First, I targeted his career. Using information from the private investigator, I meticulously laid out the evidence of Ronan's financial misdeeds and his affair with Celeste to his employer. Within days, he was summoned to a meeting and unceremoniously fired, his reputation in shambles. The look of utter disbelief on Ronan's face when he returned home, his briefcase clutched tightly in his hand, was almost enough to make me feel remorse. But then I remembered the anguish he had inflicted on me, the way he had so callously discarded our marriage, and any pity I might have felt dissipated. "What is the meaning of this, Alara?" he demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. "How dare you meddle in my professional life?" I met his gaze unflinchingly, my expression cold and impassive. "I told you, Ronan, you've taken everything from me, and now it's time for you to pay." Margot, who had been silently observing from the corner, spoke up, her voice laced with venom. "You have no one to blame but yourself, you foolish boy. Your greed and your selfishness have brought this upon you." Ronan's eyes darted between us, his face flushed with rage. "This isn't over, Alara. Celeste and I will find a way to start a new life, and you won't be able to stop us." I laughed, the sound devoid of any warmth. "Oh, Ronan, you still don't understand, do you? Celeste is not who you think she is. She's been using you all along, draining your resources to fund her own criminal activities." The color drained from Ronan's face, and for a moment I saw a flicker of doubt cross his features. "No, that can't be true. Celeste loves me. She would never—" "Open your eyes, Ronan," Margot interjected, her frail frame shaking with barely contained fury. "That woman is a snake, and she's been playing you for a fool. And now you're about to lose everything because of your own arrogance and stupidity." Ronan's expression darkened, and he took a step towards us, his fists clenched at his sides. "I won't let you ruin this for me, Alara. Celeste and I are going to be together, no matter what it takes." "Oh, but you already have, Ronan," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You see, we've been working with a private investigator, and he's uncovered the truth about Celeste's involvement with a notorious criminal network." Ronan's eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed to lose his footing, the realization of his mistake dawning on him. "You're lying. Celeste would never—" "Believe it, Ronan," I interrupted, my tone unyielding. "Celeste is nothing more than a con artist, and you've been her pawn all along. And now it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." With that, I turned on my heel and left the room, Margot following close behind. As we walked away, I could feel Ronan's eyes burning into my back, the weight of his rapidly crumbling world bearing down on him. It was a small victory, but it was only the beginning. I knew that Ronan and Celeste wouldn't go down without a fight, and I was more than ready to meet them head-on. This was a game of cat and mouse, and I was determined to emerge victorious. As the weeks passed, Ronan's world continued to crumble around him. The revelations about Celeste's criminal connections and his own misdeeds had a devastating impact, shattering the carefully constructed facade he had built. I watched with a mix of satisfaction and pity as Ronan's life unraveled. He lost his job, his reputation tarnished beyond repair. Celeste, once the object of his affection, turned on him, abandoning him in his darkest hour. The day Ronan finally realized the full extent of his downfall was etched into my memory. I'll never forget the look of utter despair on his face as he stood before us, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "This can't be happening," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Celeste, she's betrayed me. Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, it's all gone." Margot, her frail frame belying the steely resolve in her eyes, stepped forward, her expression unforgiving. "That's what you get, Ronan, for your greed and your selfishness. You deserve every bit of this punishment." Ronan's gaze snapped to his mother, a flicker of defiance igniting in his eyes. "How dare you, Mother? This is all your fault and Alara's." If you two hadn't meddled in my life, I'd be happy right now with Celeste and our child. I felt a surge of anger at his words, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Your happiness? What about my happiness, Ronan? What about the life we built together? You threw it all away without a second thought. Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. You were never enough for me, Alara. Celeste understood me in a way you never could. She saw my potential, my ambition. You were just a burden, holding me back. The words felt like a physical blow, and I had to fight the urge to lash out at him. But before I could respond, Margot stepped in, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. How dare you, you ungrateful boy. Alara has sacrificed everything for this family, for you, and this is how you repay her? With lies and betrayal? Ronan's expression hardened, and he took a step towards Margot, his voice laced with venom. Stay out of this, mother. This is between Alara and me. No, Ronan, I interjected, my voice steady despite the maelstrom of emotions raging within me. This affects all of us. Your actions have consequences, and now you're going to face them. Ronan's eyes widened as I produced a small recording device, the display flashing with the timestamp of our previous confrontation. What is this? Insurance, I said, my lips curling into a grim smile. You see, Ronan, I knew you wouldn't go down without a fight, so I made sure to document everything, including your confession of infidelity and your admission of financial crimes. Ronan's face drained of color, and he took a step back, his hands trembling. You can't do this. That recording is inadmissible, and you have no proof of my wrongdoings. I shook my head, my expression unyielding. Oh, but we do, Ronan. Everett has been working tirelessly to uncover the truth, and he's compiled a mountain of evidence against you and your precious Celeste. Ronan's eyes darted between Margot and me, his usual bravado crumbling in the face of our unwavering resolve. This can't be happening, he whispered, his voice laced with despair. But it is, Ronan, I said, my tone laced with a sense of finality. And now it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. With those words, I turned and walked away, leaving Ronan to confront the grim reality of his shattered dreams. As I did so, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, not out of cruelty, but from the knowledge that justice was finally being served. As Ronan's world crumbled around him, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction wash over me. The evidence we had gathered, meticulously compiled by Everett, had proven to be our trump card. I watched as Ronan's arrogance and self-assurance melted away, replaced by a growing desperation. He stood before us, his face a mask of disbelief and fury, as I revealed the full extent of my plan. This can't be happening, he stammered, his eyes darting between Margot and me. You can't do this to me. I won't let you ruin everything I've worked for. I felt a surge of vindication at his words, knowing that the tables had finally turned. Oh, but we can, Ronan. And we will. You see, we have recordings of our previous confrontations, where you've openly confessed to your infidelity and financial misdeeds. Ronan's face drained of color, and he took a step back, his hands trembling. No, that's impossible. You couldn't have. I held up a hand, silencing him. But we did, Ronan. And that's not all. Everett has uncovered a wealth of evidence linking you and Celeste to a vast network of criminal activities. Margot stepped forward, her eyes narrowed in contempt. You thought you could get away with your betrayal, didn't you, boy? Well, now you're going to pay for your sins, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Ronan's expression twisted with anguish and rage. You're lying. Celeste would never betray me like this. She loves me. She needs me. I shook my head, my voice laced with a sense of pity. I'm afraid that's not the case, Ronan. Celeste has been using you all along, draining your resources to fund her own criminal ventures. She never cared about you, only about what you could provide for her. Ronan's knees buckled, and he sank into a nearby chair, his head in his hands. No, he muttered, the words barely audible. This can't be happening. My life, my future, everything I've worked for. I watched him, my heart hardening against the sight of his despair. After everything he had done to me, to us, I felt no remorse for the consequences he now faced. It's over, Ronan, I said, my voice firm. You're going to be held accountable for your actions, both legally and financially, and Celeste will face the consequences of her crimes as well. Ronan looked up, his eyes wild with desperation. Please, Alara, you have to help me. I'll do anything, just make this go away. I can't lose everything. I can't. I held up a hand, silencing him. It's too late for that, Ronan. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. Margot and I, we're moving on. We're going to start a new life, one without you in it. Ronan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He sat there, utterly defeated, as the reality of his downfall sank in. I turned to Margot, a small, sad smile on my lips. Come on, Mother, let's go. We have a future to build. As Margot and I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. Ronan had betrayed me, but in the end, justice had prevailed. And now, with the remaining assets from our marriage, Margot and I could start anew, free from the shadow of his deceit. As Ronan's world crumbled around him, Margot and I wasted no time in moving on with our lives. With the remainder of our assets, we were able to secure a comfortable new home in a quiet, suburban neighborhood, a fresh start away from the pain and betrayal we had endured. I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief as we settled into our new surroundings, the weight of the past few months slowly lifting from my shoulders. Margot, too, seemed to thrive in our new environment, her mobility issues improving as she engaged with the local community. It's amazing how much better I feel being out of that old house, Margot said one evening as we sat together on our patio, the setting sun casting a warm glow across the well-manicured lawn. That place held so many memories, both good and bad. Now it's like we can breathe again. I nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. I know what you mean, Mother. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I'm grateful we have this chance to start anew. Margot reached out and squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and affection. And I'm grateful to have you, my dear. You've been through so much, and yet you've come out of it stronger than ever. I felt a surge of emotion at her words, and I blinked back the tears that threatened to fall. I couldn't have done it without you, Margot. Your support, your unwavering belief in me, it's what kept me going. Margot chuckled, her expression softening. Nonsense, my dear. You are the one who took charge, who fought back against that despicable son of mine. I may have provided a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on, but you were the one who orchestrated his downfall. I nodded, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to do it. Ronan took so much from me, from us. I couldn't just let him walk away and start a new life, not after everything he's done. Margot's expression sobered, and she squeezed my hand again. You're right, Alara. Ronan deserved every bit of what he got, and I'm glad to see that he's finally facing the consequences of his actions. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon. It was a peaceful scene, a far cry from the turmoil we had experienced just a few months ago. You know, I said, breaking the silence, I think I'm ready to start focusing on my own future again. I've spent so long taking care of others, it's time I started taking care of myself. Margot smiled, her eyes sparkling with a newfound energy. I couldn't agree more, my dear, and I'm more than happy to lend a hand. After all, we're in this together, now and always. With that, we rose from our seats and headed inside, the warmth of the evening air enveloping us. As I walked through the halls of our new home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and optimism for the future. Ronan's betrayal had shattered my world, but with Margot by my side, I was ready to rebuild it, brick by brick. This was a new chapter, one filled with the promise of redemption and the pursuit of happiness. And as I looked to the road ahead, I knew that whatever challenges lay in wait, I was more than ready to face them head on. I've been sleeping with your best friend. Asher's words cut through me like a knife, shattering the illusion of our perfect life together. I stare at him, my heart pounding in my chest as the weight of his confession settles over me. 5 years of marriage, countless memories, and a friendship I cherished above all else, all tainted by this single moment of betrayal. Natalie, my closest confidant, the person I trusted with my deepest secrets, had been lying to me for God knows how long. Asher's face is a mask of cold indifference as he watches me process his words. I want a divorce, Evelyn. It's over. Anger, hot and fierce, surges through my veins. How could you do this to me, to us? We had a life together, Asher. We had plans, dreams. He scoffs, shaking his head. Plans, dreams. You've been so focused on your career, Evelyn, that you've forgotten what it means to be a wife, I needed more than a roommate who occasionally shares my bed. His words sting, but I refuse to let him see how deeply they cut. And Natalie, how long has this been going on behind my back? Asher has the decency to look away, a flicker of shame crossing his features. A year. It started as a friendship, but it grew into something more. Something real. I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound that echoes in the stillness of our living room. Real? You call sneaking around, lying to your wife, and betraying your vows real? What about our marriage, Asher? Was that not real enough for you? He sighs, running a hand through his hair. I didn't plan for this to happen, Evelyn. But Natalie, she understands me in a way you never could. She supports my dreams, my ambitions. She doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more out of life. And that's worth throwing away everything we've built together? Our home, our future? I can feel the hot sting of tears behind my eyes, but I blink them back, refusing to let him see me crumble. Asher looks at me, his expression a mix of pity and resignation. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but I can't live a lie anymore. I want a divorce, and I'm going to start a new life with Natalie. The finality in his words hits me like a physical blow. In an instant, my world has been turned upside down. Everything I thought I knew, revealed as nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. As Asher turns to leave, I call out, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. This isn't over, Asher. I won't let you walk away from our marriage without a fight. You and Natalie will pay for what you've done. He pauses, his hand on the doorknob, and looks back at me. Do what you need to do, Evelyn. But it won't change the fact that I've made my choice. I'm sorry it had to end this way. With that, he's gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. I sink to the floor, my legs no longer able to support me, as the tears I've been holding back finally break free. In the silence of our once shared home, I make a vow to myself. I will uncover the truth behind their betrayal, and I will make them regret the day they chose to deceive me. I confront Asher, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. You blame me for your infidelity? How dare you, Asher? We both had demanding careers, but I never once considered betraying our vows. Asher's eyes narrow, his voice dripping with condescension. You were always too busy, Evelyn, too focused on your own success to notice that our marriage was crumbling. Natalie was there for me when you weren't. I supported your career, your ambitions. We made decisions together, Asher. We agreed to wait on starting a family until we were both ready. My voice rises, frustration and hurt bleeding into every word. A cruel smile plays on Asher's lips. Well, I'm ready now. Natalie's pregnant, and I'm going to marry her. We're going to have the family I always wanted, the family you were too selfish to give me. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing the air from my lungs. Pregnant? You got her pregnant while we were still married? How could you be so reckless, so irresponsible? Asher shrugs, his indifference a sharp contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. It happened, Evelyn, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Natalie and I are building a future together, and I won't let you stand in our way. I clench my fists, my nails digging into my palms. You're a liar and a cheat, Asher. You've betrayed me in the worst possible way. And for what? A woman who was willing to sleep with her best friend's husband? What kind of future can you possibly hope to build on a foundation of deceit? He steps closer, his eyes cold and unfeeling. The kind of future I deserve, Evelyn. One where I'm not constantly being held back by a wife who can't see beyond her own ambitions. Natalie understands me, supports me in ways you never could. And you think that justifies your actions? You think that gives you the right to destroy our marriage, to shatter the trust I placed in you? My voice cracks, the weight of his betrayal threatening to crush me. Asher's face hardens, his words laced with venom. I'm done living a lie, Evelyn. I'm done pretending to be happy in a marriage that's been dead for years. You can have your divorce, but don't expect me to go down without a fight. I'll make sure you regret ever trying to stand in the way of my happiness. Happiness? I laugh, a bitter, broken sound. You think you'll find happiness with a woman who betrays her best friend? You're delusional, Asher, and I promise you this. I will uncover every lie, every secret, every dirty little detail of your affair. I'll make sure the world sees you for the monster you really are. He smirks, unfazed by my threats. Do your worst, Evelyn. But remember, I'm not the only one with secrets. You're not as perfect as you'd like everyone to believe. With that, he turns and walks away, leaving me standing alone in the ruins of our once happy life. I watch him go, my heart hardening with each step he takes. I will not let him win. I will not let him destroy me. I will fight back with every ounce of strength I possess, and I will make sure he pays for his betrayal. As I stand there, the pieces of my shattered world littering the ground at my feet, I make a silent vow to myself. I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost. I will expose Asher and Natalie for the liars they are, and I will rebuild my life on my own terms. The price of their deception will be high, and I will make sure they pay it in full. I sit across from the private investigator, his face a mask of professional detachment, as he slides a manila envelope across the table. This is what I've managed to uncover so far, Mrs. Callahan. It seems your husband has been quite generous with his mistress. I open the envelope with trembling hands, my eyes widening as I flip through the photographs and financial statements. Asher, my loving husband, had been funneling money into Natalie's bank account for months, paying for her rent, her art supplies, her lavish lifestyle. How long has this been going on? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. The investigator leans back in his chair, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and understanding. From what I can tell, the payment started about 6 months ago, right around the time your husband started spending more late nights at the office. I nod, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Asher's sudden distance, his increasingly cold demeanor, all signs I had foolishly ignored in my desire to believe in the sanctity of our marriage. Thank you, I say, sliding the envelope back across the table. I appreciate your discretion in this matter. He nods, rising from his seat. Of course, Mrs. Callahan. If there's anything else I can do to assist you, please don't hesitate to call. I leave the investigator's office, my mind reeling with the evidence of Asher's betrayal. But I know confronting him directly will only lead to more lies, more denials. No, I need to go straight to the source. I need to speak with Natalie. I find her at her studio, her once vibrant paintings now twisted and dark, reflecting the turmoil of her own guilty conscience. She looks up as I enter, her eyes widening in surprise and fear. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" she asks, her voice trembling. I hold up the envelope, my eyes hard and unforgiving. "I know about the money, Natalie. I know Asher's been supporting you, paying for your life while he was still married to me." She pales, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. I can't explain, Evelyn. It's not what you think." "Really?" I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound, because it looks like my husband has been having an affair with my best friend, all while lying to my face and pretending to be the perfect devoted spouse. Natalie's eyes fill with tears, her voice breaking as she speaks. "He promised me, Evelyn. He said he was going to leave you, that we were going to start a life together. He said he loved me." I shake my head, my heart hardening with each word she speaks. "And you believed him? You thought he would actually leave his wife, his successful career, for a struggling artist who can't even support herself?" She flinches at my words, her shoulders sagging in defeat. "I know it was wrong, Evelyn. I never meant to hurt you. But Asher, he made me feel special, wanted. He said he needed me in ways you could never understand." "Needed you?" I scoff, my anger rising with each passing moment. "He needed a mistress, Natalie, someone to stroke his ego and make him feel like a man, but he never intended to leave me. He never intended to start a family with you." Her eyes widen, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. "But the baby, he said he wanted this child, that we were going to be a family." I laugh, a sound devoid of any humor. "Asher doesn't want children, Natalie. He made that clear to me from the start. He only wants what he can't have, and once he gets it, he loses interest. You're nothing more than a conquest to him, a way to prove his own virility." She crumples then, her sobs echoing off the walls of the studio. I watch her, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction in her pain. She brought this upon herself, and now she must face the consequences. "I hope it was worth it, Natalie," I say, my voice cold and unfeeling. "I hope the price of your betrayal was worth the momentary thrill of being Asher's mistress. Because now, you'll have to live with the knowledge that you destroyed our friendship, our trust, for a man who never truly loved you." With that, I turn and walk away, leaving her to drown in her own tears and regrets. I have the evidence I need, the proof of Asher's lies and deceit. and I will use it to make sure he pays for every moment of pain he has caused me. I step into the sleek, modern office of Liam Hastings, the renowned divorce attorney known for his ruthless tactics and unparalleled success rate. He rises from behind his desk, his hand outstretched in greeting. "Mrs. Callahan, a pleasure to meet you," he says, his voice smooth and confident. "I've heard great things about your work as a lawyer. It's a shame we're meeting under such unfortunate circumstances." I take his hand, my grip firm and unyielding. "Please, call me Evelyn, and thank you for agreeing to take on my case. I need someone who isn't afraid to play hardball." Liam smiles, a glint of something dangerous in his eyes. "I assure you, Evelyn, I'm not in the business of playing nice. When my clients come to me, they expect results, and I deliver." We sit and I slide the manila envelope across his desk. "This is what my private investigator uncovered. Proof of my husband's infidelity and financial support of his mistress." Liam flips through the documents, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is good, Evelyn. Very good. With this evidence, we can paint a picture of a man who not only betrayed his marriage vows, but also his financial responsibilities." I nod, my heart racing with the thrill of impending revenge. "There's more. I've uncovered evidence that Asher has been embezzling funds from our joint accounts, funneling the money into Natalie's bank account." Liam's eyes widen, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Embezzlement? Oh, this is going to be fun. We'll nail him to the wall, Evelyn. He won't know what hit him." We spend the next few hours poring over the evidence, strategizing our next moves. Liam is brilliant, his mind working in ways I never could have imagined. He sees angles I never considered, finds loopholes and technicalities that will work in our favor. As we work, I find myself drawn to him, to his intensity and his passion for justice. He understands the pain of betrayal, the anger that comes with being wronged by someone you trusted, and in that understanding I find a kindred spirit. "You know, Evelyn," he says, leaning back in his chair, "I've seen a lot of cases like yours over the years. Spouses who cheat, who lie, who think they can get away with anything. But you're different. You're a fighter. You're not going to let him win." I smile, feeling a warmth spread through my chest at his words. Damn right, I'm not. Asher thinks he can just walk away, start a new life with his mistress, and leave me to pick up the pieces. But he has no idea what's coming for him. Liam reaches across the desk, his hand covering mine. "We'll make him pay, Evelyn. Together. He'll regret the day he ever thought he could betray you and get away with it." I look into his eyes, seeing the fire and determination that mirrors my own. In that moment, I know I've found more than just a lawyer. I've found a partner, someone who will stand by my side and fight for what's right. "Let's do this," I say, my voice steady and strong. "Let's take him down." Liam grins, a wicked gleam in his eye. "With pleasure, Evelyn, with pleasure." As we continue to work, the hours ticking by in a blur of strategy and planning, I feel a sense of power coursing through my veins. Asher thought he could break me, thought he could shatter my world and leave me helpless. But he underestimated me. He underestimated the depths of my rage, the strength of my resolve. And now, with Liam by my side, I will make him pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment of pain he has inflicted upon me. The price of his deception will be high, and I will collect every penny. I stand before Asher, my eyes blazing with the fury of 1,000 suns. In my hands, I clutch the evidence of his deceit. It's the proof of his betrayal. He looks at me, his face a mask of arrogance and disdain. "What do you want, Evelyn?" he sneers, his voice dripping with contempt. "I thought I made myself clear. We're done. I'm starting a new life with Natalie." I laugh, a cold, mirthless sound that echoes through the room. "Oh, you're done, all right, Asher, but not in the way you think." I toss the papers onto the table between us, watching as his eyes widen in recognition. "You thought you could hide your lies, your embezzlement, your sordid little affair. But you were wrong. I have proof of everything, Asher, every penny you stole, every promise you broke." He reaches for the papers, his hands trembling. This is nonsense, Evelyn. You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" I smirk, reveling in his discomfort. "I have bank statements, credit card receipts, emails, and text messages. I have a private investigator who has been tracking your every move, and I have a team of lawyers who are ready to take you down." Asher's face pales, his bravado crumbling before my eyes. What do you want, Evelyn? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want, just don't do this. I lean forward, my eyes locked on his. What I want, Asher, is justice. I want you to pay for what you've done, for the pain you've caused. I want you to suffer, just like I have suffered. He shakes his head, his voice desperate. Please, Evelyn, think about what you're doing. Think about our marriage, our life together. Our marriage? I scoff, my anger rising with each passing second. You destroyed our marriage the moment you decided to stick your dick in my best friend. You threw away our life together the moment you chose her over me. Asher's eyes narrow, his voice growing cold. You're making a mistake, Evelyn. If you go through with this, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll drag your name through the mud. I'll make sure everyone knows what a vindictive bitch you really are. I laugh, a sound full of bitter triumph. Go ahead, Asher. Do your worst. But know this. I have the truth on my side. I have the evidence of your lies and your betrayal. And I will use it to destroy you, just like you destroyed me. He stares at me, his eyes full of hatred and fear. You'll never win, Evelyn. I'll fight you every step of the way. I smile, a cold, cruel twist of my lips. Bring it on, Asher. I'm ready for war. With that, I turn and walk away, my head held high. I feel a sense of power coursing through my veins, a sense of purpose that I haven't felt in years. Asher thought he could break me, thought he could shatter my world and leave me helpless. But he was wrong. I am stronger than he ever imagined, and I will not rest until he has paid for his crimes. I will not rest until he has felt the full of my vengeance. As I step out into the bright sunlight, I feel a sense of hope blooming in my chest. I have a long road ahead of me, a battle that will test me in ways I never imagined. But I am ready. I am ready to fight, to claw my way back from the brink of despair and emerge victorious. Asher and Natalie may have started this war, but I will be the one to finish it. And when the dust settles, they will know the true price of their deception. The shrill ring of my phone pierces the silence of my apartment. I glance at the screen, my heart skipping a beat as I see Natalie's name flashing across the display. I hesitate for a moment, wondering what fresh hell she has in store for me, before answering with a curt, "What do you want?" "Evelyn, please," she sobs, her voice thick with tears. "I need your help. The baby, she's not Asher's." I feel a rush of vindictive pleasure at her words, a sense of poetic justice that leaves me breathless. Well, I purr, my voice dripping with malice. "It seems the tables have turned, haven't they, Natalie?" She's quiet for a moment, her sniffles the only sound on the line. "I know I don't deserve your help, Evelyn. I know what I did was unforgivable, but please, I have nowhere else to turn. Asher, he abandoned us. He said he wants nothing to do with me or the baby." I lean back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. "And why should I help you, Natalie? After everything you've done, after all the pain you've caused, why should I lift a finger to help you?" "Because I have information," she whispers, her voice trembling. "Information that could help you destroy Asher. I'll tell you everything, Evelyn, every dirty secret, every lie he's ever told. Just please, help me. Help my baby." I'm silent for a long moment, weighing my options. On the one hand, the thought of helping Natalie, of showing her even an ounce of mercy, makes my stomach churn with disgust. But on the other hand, the promise of more ammunition against Asher, of more weapons to use in my war against him, is too tempting to resist. "Fine," I say, my voice cold and hard. "I'll help you, Natalie, but not for you, for your child, and in exchange you'll give me everything you have on Asher, every last scrap of dirt, every skeleton in his closet. Do we have a deal?" She's quiet for a moment, her breathing ragged. "Yes," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "We have a deal." I hang up the phone, my mind racing with the possibilities. With Natalie's testimony, with the evidence she can provide, I can bring Asher to his knees. I can make him pay for every moment of pain he's caused, every lie he's ever told. But first, I need to make sure Natalie holds up her end of the bargain. I need to make sure she's truly on my side, that she's not just using me for her own gain. I pick up the phone again, dialing Liam's number. He answers on the first ring, his voice warm and comforting. "Evelyn, what's up?" "Natalie called," I say, my voice steady and strong. "She wants my help. Says the baby isn't Asher's and he's abandoned them." Liam is quiet for a moment, his mind working through the implications. This could be big, Evelyn. If Natalie's telling the truth, if she has evidence against Asher, it could be the final nail in his coffin. I know, I say, my heart racing with the thrill of impending victory. But I need to make sure she's not playing me. I need to make sure she's truly on our side. Leave that to me, Liam says, his voice full of confidence. I'll dig into her background, make sure she's not hiding anything, and if she is, we'll use it against her. We'll make sure she has no choice but to cooperate. I smile, feeling a rush of gratitude for Liam's unwavering support. Thank you, Liam. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'll never have to find out, he says, his voice soft and tender. I'm here for you, Evelyn, always. As I hang up the phone, I feel a sense of hope blooming in my chest. With Natalie's testimony, with Liam by my side, I can finally bring Asher to justice. I can finally make him pay for every moment of pain he's caused. And when the dust settles, when the war is won, I will emerge victorious. I will emerge stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever before. Liam and I sit side by side, poring over the evidence we've gathered against Asher. Bank statements, phone records, emails, and texts, all painting a picture of a man consumed by his own greed and selfishness. This is good, Evelyn, Liam says, his eyes sparkling with excitement. With Natalie's testimony and the evidence we've uncovered, we can bring Asher down. We can expose him for the fraud he really is. I nod, my heart racing with the thrill of impending victory. I want to see him suffer, Liam. I want to see him lose everything, just like he made me lose everything. Liam takes my hand, his touch warm and comforting. We'll make sure he pays, Evelyn. We'll make sure he never hurts anyone else ever again. We work tirelessly, building our case against Asher. We reach out to his colleagues, his patients, anyone who might have information about his unethical behavior. And with each new piece of evidence, each new testimony, our case grows stronger. Finally, the day of reckoning arrives. We stand before the medical board, our evidence laid out in damning detail. Asher sits across from us, his face pale and drawn, his eyes filled with fear. Dr. Asher Callahan, the board chairman begins, his voice grave. The evidence against you is overwhelming. You have violated the trust of your patients, your colleagues, and your profession. You have engaged in unethical behavior, financial misconduct, and adultery. What do you have to say for yourself? Asher opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. He looks at me, his eyes pleading for mercy, but I have none to give. You destroyed my life, Asher, I say, my voice cold and hard. You betrayed me, lied to me, and made me question everything I ever believed in. And now you will pay the price for your actions. The board deliberates for only a few minutes before reaching their decision. Dr. Asher Callahan, the chairman says, his voice ringing with finality. It is the decision of this board to revoke your medical license, effective immediately. You are hereby barred from practicing medicine in the state of New York, and your name will be added to the National Registry of Disciplined Physicians. May God have mercy on your soul. Asher crumples in his seat, his face buried in his hands. I feel a rush of triumph, a sense of vindication that leaves me breathless. I have won. I have destroyed the man who destroyed me. As we leave the hearing, Liam takes my hand, his eyes shining with pride. You did it, Evelyn. You brought him to justice. I nod, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. You've been my rock through all of this. He smiles, his hand tightening around mine. I'll always be here for you, Evelyn, no matter what. We walk out into the bright sunlight, ready to face the world together. Natalie is waiting for us, her baby cradled in her arms. She looks at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Evelyn, she says, her voice trembling with emotion. Thank you for helping me, for giving me a second chance. I nod, feeling a sense of kinship with the woman who was once my enemy. We all deserve a second chance, Natalie, even you. As we walk away, I feel a sense of hope blooming in my chest. The past few months have been a nightmare, a hell I never thought I'd escape. But now, with Asher's downfall and Liam by my side, I know that anything is possible. I have emerged from the darkness, stronger and more powerful than ever before, and I know that whatever the future holds, I will face it with my head held high, ready to take on the world. The slamming of the front door jolts me from my thoughts. Ethan storms into the living room, his face contorted with anger. Where the hell have you been? He demands, his voice dripping with accusation. I was volunteering at the youth center, I reply calmly, trying to diffuse the situation. You know how much it means to me. Oh, spare me the sob story, Vivian, Ethan scoffs. You're supposed to be here, supporting me and my career. Instead, you're off playing saint to a bunch of delinquents. His words sting, but I refuse to let him see how much they hurt. They're not delinquents, Ethan. They're kids who need guidance and support. What they need is discipline and a swift kick in the ass, he retorts. And what I need is a wife who understands her role. I feel my blood boil at his condescending tone. My role? And what exactly is that, Ethan? To be your trophy wife? To sit at home and wait for you to grace me with your presence? Don't be so dramatic, he sneers. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. I'm on the fast track to partner, and I need a wife who can keep up appearances. Appearances? I echo, disbelief coloring my voice. Is that all our marriage is to you? A facade to impress your colleagues? Ethan steps closer, his eyes narrowing. Watch your tone, Vivian. Remember who pays the bills around here. The threat hangs heavy in the air, and I feel a chill run down my spine. Are you seriously going to hold that over my head? I gave up my job to move here for you, Ethan. I've sacrificed everything for this marriage. Sacrificed? He laughs humorlessly. You call sitting around all day, spending my money a sacrifice? You should be grateful for the life I've given you. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I blink them back, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I am grateful, Ethan, but I'm also suffocating. I feel like I'm losing myself in this marriage. Then maybe you should find yourself a new hobby, he suggests coldly. One that doesn't involve neglecting your duties as my wife. And what about your duties as my husband? I counter, my voice rising. When was the last time you even asked about my day? Or showed any interest in my life? Ethan's jaw clenches, and for a moment I think he might actually hear me. But then he shakes his head, his expression hardening. I don't have time for this, Vivian. I have a career to focus on. If you can't handle that, then maybe we need to reevaluate this marriage. With that, he turns on his heel and stalks out of the room, leaving me standing there, my heart in pieces. I sink onto the couch, my mind reeling. How did we get here? How did the man I fell in love with turn into this cold, calculating stranger? I think back to the early days of our relationship, when Ethan was attentive and loving. We met at a charity event, both passionate about making a difference in the world. He swept me off my feet with his charm and ambition, and within a year we were married. But somewhere along the way, his career took precedence over everything else. And now, I'm left wondering if there's anything left of the marriage I thought we had. 2 years into our marriage, Ethan comes home with a bombshell announcement. I've been offered a partnership at a law firm in Los Angeles, he declares, a triumphant grin on his face. I stare at him, my heart sinking. Los Angeles? But what about my job, Ethan? My students? Come on, Vivian, he cajoles. This is a once-in-lifetime opportunity. You can always find another teaching job in L.A. It's not that simple, I argue, my voice strained. I've built a life here, Ethan. I have roots in this community. Ethan's smile fades, replaced by a look of annoyance. I thought you'd be happy for me, Vivian. This is a huge step up for us. For you, maybe, I counter. But what about what I want? What about my dreams? Dreams? He scoffs. You're a high school teacher, Vivian. How far do you think that's going to take you? His words cut deep, and I feel my eyes sting with tears. I can't believe you just said that. Teaching is my passion, Ethan. It's not just a job to me. Ethan sighs, running a hand through his hair. Look, I didn't mean it like that, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, Vivian. We can't pass it up. I know he's right, but the thought of leaving everything behind feels like a knife twisting in my gut. Fine, I relent, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll take a sabbatical from teaching. Ethan's face lights up, and he pulls me into a hug. You won't regret this, Vivian. I promise. But as we pack up our life and prepare for the move, I can't shake the feeling that I'm making a terrible mistake. The day of the move arrives, and I find myself surrounded by boxes, my childhood home stripped bare. As I carefully wrap a framed photo of my parents, Ethan walks in, a look of disdain on his face. You're not seriously bringing that old junk, are you? He asks, eyeing the sentimental items I've carefully packed. They're not junk, Ethan, I defend, my voice tight. They're memories. pieces of my history. We're starting a new life, Vivian, he reminds me, his tone condescending. We don't need to drag the past along with us. I bite my tongue, not wanting to argue. But as I watch Ethan carelessly toss my treasured possessions aside, I feel a piece of myself crumble. We arrive in Los Angeles, and Ethan ushers me into our new home, a sleek, modern, high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Isn't it perfect?" he gushes, his eyes alight with excitement. I force a smile, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. "It's lovely, Ethan." He wraps an arm around my waist, pulling me close. "This is just the beginning, Vivian. I'm going to give you the life you've always dreamed of." But as I stare out at the unfamiliar skyline, I can't help but wonder if the life I've always dreamed of is the one I'm leaving behind. 6 months pass in a blur of cocktail parties and corporate dinners, Ethan's new role consuming his every waking moment. I find solace in volunteering at a local youth center, pouring my heart into mentoring troubled teens. But one evening, as I'm getting ready for a fundraiser, Ethan barges into the bedroom, his face twisted with rage. "Are you seriously wearing that?" he demands, eyeing my simple black dress with disdain. "What's wrong with it?" I ask, my voice trembling slightly. "You look like a damn school marm," he sneers. "I need you to look the part of a successful lawyer's wife, not some frumpy volunteer." Tears sting my eyes, but I blink them back, refusing to let him see how much his words hurt. "I'll change," I mumble, turning away. But as I slip into a designer gown and plaster on a fake smile, I can't shake the feeling that I'm slowly losing myself, piece by piece. 6 months into our new life in Los Angeles, Ethan's behavior takes a turn for the worse. He becomes increasingly distant and irritable, the stress of his demanding job taking a toll on our already strained relationship. I find solace in volunteering at the youth center, pouring my heart into mentoring the kids who have come to rely on me. But one evening, as I'm preparing to leave for a fundraising event, Ethan storms into the room, his face contorted with anger. "Where do you think you're going?" he demands, his voice dripping with disdain. "To the youth center fundraiser," I reply, my heart sinking at the sight of his rage. "I told you about it weeks ago. And I told you to prioritize our social obligations," he snaps. "You're supposed to be at the law firm dinner with me tonight." "I can't just abandon the kids, Ethan," I plead. "They're counting on me." "I'm counting on you," he roars, slamming his hand against the wall. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to have a wife who'd rather spend her time with a bunch of delinquents than support her husband's career?" Tears sting my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. "They're not delinquents, Ethan. They're good kids who just need someone to believe in them." "Believe in them?" he scoffs. "They're a lost cause, Vivian. Just like you'll be if you don't start prioritizing what's important." His words cut deep, but I stand my ground. I am prioritizing what's important, Ethan. Those kids need me. "And what about what I need?" he demands, his voice low and menacing. "What about the sacrifices I've made for this family?" "Sacrifices?" I echo, disbelief coloring my tone. "You've been so focused on your career that you've barely even noticed me these past few months." "Oh, I've noticed," he sneers. "I've noticed how you've let yourself go, how you'd rather wallow in self-pity than be the wife I need you to be." I reel back as if he slapped me, my heart shattering into a million pieces. "How can you say that?" I whisper, my voice trembling. "I've given up everything for you, Ethan. My job, my home, my entire life." "And now you'll give up this ridiculous volunteering," he demands, "or I'll cut off your access to our joint bank account." I stare at him in shock, unable to believe what I'm hearing. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," he says, his eyes cold and unforgiving. "I'm done indulging your little charity projects, Vivian. It's time for you to fall in line." With that, he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, leaving me to collapse onto the bed, my body shaking with silent sobs. I feel trapped, suffocated by the weight of Ethan's expectations and the life I've found myself in. Over the next few weeks, I try to be the wife Ethan wants me to be. I attend his work functions, plastering on a fake smile and pretending to be the perfect corporate spouse. But inside, I'm dying a little more each day. I long for the fulfillment I once found in teaching, for the sense of purpose that volunteering at the youth center brought me. But every time I try to broach the subject with Ethan, he shuts me down, reminding me of my place in his life. One night, As we're getting ready for yet another work dinner, I finally muster up the courage to confront him. I can't do this anymore, Ethan, I say, my voice shaking. I'm miserable. I feel like I'm losing myself. He looks at me, his eyes cold and unfeeling. You're not losing yourself, Vivian. You're finding your place in this world, and that place is by my side, supporting my career. But what about my career? I plead. What about my dreams? Dreams, he scoffs. Grow up, Vivian. It's time to face reality. This is your life now, and the sooner you accept that, the better off we'll both be. I feel something break inside of me, the last shred of hope I'd been clinging to shattering into dust. And as I follow Ethan out the door, my heart heavy with despair, I can't help but wonder if I'll ever find my way back to the person I used to be. As the months drag on, the distance between Ethan and I grows wider with each passing day. I long for the connection we once shared, for the love that brought us together in the first place. And so one evening, I muster up the courage to broach the subject that's been weighing on my heart. Ethan, I say softly, my voice trembling, I've been thinking about starting a family. He looks up from his laptop, his eyes narrowing. A family? Now? Are you out of your mind, Vivian? His harsh tone catches me off guard, and I feel my heart sink. I just thought, with your career taking off and us settling into our new life here. Settling into our new life, he scoffs. I'm barely keeping my head above water at work, and you want to add a baby to the mix? But I thought you wanted children, I whisper, my voice barely audible. Maybe someday? He says dismissively, but not now, Vivian. I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility. His words cut deep, and I feel a piece of my dream for our future crumble. But I refuse to let him see how much he's hurt me. Instead, I force a smile and nod. Of course. You're right. It was a silly idea. Ethan returns to his work, and I'm left alone with my thoughts, my heart heavy with the weight of his rejection. In an attempt to find some semblance of purpose, I take a part-time job at a bookstore. At first, Ethan seems supportive, even happy that I'm getting out of the house. But as the weeks pass, his attitude begins to change. I don't like you spending so much time away from home, he grumbles one evening as I'm getting ready for my shift. It's just a few hours a week, Ethan, I remind him gently. And I thought you wanted me to find something to keep me busy. I wanted you to find a hobby, not a job, he retorts. What's next? You'll be neglecting your duties at home to pursue some silly career? I bristle at his words, my temper flaring. My duties at home? You mean waiting on you hand and foot, catering to your every whim? Watch your tone, Vivian, he warns, his eyes flashing with anger. I take a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I'm sorry, Ethan, I didn't mean to snap. I need something for myself, something that makes me feel valued. For a moment, his expression softens, and I think he might actually understand, but then he shakes his head, his jaw clenching. Fine. Do what you want, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. I leave for my shift with a heavy heart, wondering if I'll ever be able to find happiness in this new life we've built. A few days later, on a whim, Ethan and I buy lottery tickets. As we sit at the kitchen table, scratching off the numbers, I can't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be our lucky break. But as the weeks pass and the drawing comes and goes, our tickets prove to be just another disappointment. Ethan barely seems to notice, too caught up in his own world to care about my foolish dreams. And then, just when I think things can't get any worse, Ethan comes home with news that turns my world upside down. I got a promotion, he announces, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. For a moment, I allow myself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe this will be the thing that finally brings us back together, that reignites the spark we once shared. But as the days turn into weeks, Ethan's behavior only worsens. He becomes more demanding, more critical of my every move. Nothing I do seems to be good enough, and I find myself walking on eggshells, desperate to avoid his wrath. Late one night, as I lie awake in bed, listening to Ethan's steady breathing beside me, I can't help but wonder how we got here, how the man I once loved could have turned into such a monster. And as I stare up at the ceiling, my heart heavy with the weight of my own misery, I know one thing for certain. Something has to change. I can't keep living like this. I just don't know how much more I can take. Ethan's promotion seems to have only fueled his ego, and his treatment of me reaches new lows. One evening, he comes home late from work, reeking of alcohol and expensive perfume. "Where have you been?" I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "Out with clients," he slurs, stumbling into the living room. "Not that it's any of your business." I feel a flare of anger at his dismissive tone. "It is my business, Ethan. I'm your wife." He laughs, a cruel, mocking sound. "Wife? Please. You're nothing but a burden, Vivian, a millstone around my neck." His words hit me like a physical blow, and I reel back, my eyes stinging with tears. "How can you say that? After everything I've done for you, for our marriage." "What have you done exactly?" he sneers. "Quit your job? Abandoned your friends? Moved across the country for me? You should be thanking me for giving you a purpose in life." I shake my head in disbelief, unable to comprehend the venom in his voice. "A purpose? You've taken everything from me, Ethan. My career, my dreams, my sense of self-worth." "Oh, spare me the pity party." He scoffs. "You're just jealous of my success. Jealous that I've made something of myself while you've been content to sit at home and play the martyr." "Jealous?" I echo, my voice rising. "I'm not jealous of your success, Ethan. I'm disgusted by what it's turned you into." He takes a step towards me, his eyes flashing with anger. "Watch yourself, Vivian. You don't want to push me too far." But I'm too far gone to heed his warning. "Or what? You'll leave me? Go ahead. I'd rather be alone than spend another minute with a man who treats me like dirt." For a moment he looks stunned, as if he can't believe I've dared to stand up to him. But then his face twists into a sneer, and he leans in close, his breath hot against my cheek. "You're nothing without me, Vivian. Nothing. And if you even think about leaving, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." With that, he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, leaving me trembling in his wake. I sink onto the couch, my head in my hands, and let the tears come. How did I let things get this bad? How did I let myself become so weak, so dependent on a man who clearly doesn't love me? As I sit there, lost in my own misery, my phone buzzes with an incoming text. I glance at the screen, expecting to see a message from Ethan, but instead, I find myself staring at a name I don't recognize. Natalie. My heart stops. Who is Natalie? And why is she texting my husband at this hour of the night? With shaking hands, I open the message, my eyes widening as I read the words on the screen. "I had a great time tonight, Ethan. Can't wait to see you again soon. XOXO." I feel like I've been punched in the gut. Ethan is cheating on me. The late nights, the distant behavior, the cruel words. It all makes sense now. I confront him the moment he walks through the door, my voice shaking with anger and betrayal. "Who is Natalie, Ethan? And don't you dare lie to me." He looks at me, his eyes cold and unfeeling. "She's a colleague, a friend. Not that it's any of your business." "A friend," I echo, my voice rising. "Since when do friends send flirty texts in the middle of the night?" His face hardens, and he takes a step towards me, his fists clenched at his sides. "You went through my phone. How dare you?" "How dare I?" I shout, my temper flaring. "How dare you cheat on me, Ethan? How dare you treat me like garbage while you're off screwing some other woman?" "I want a divorce," he says flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. "I'm done with this marriage, Vivian. Done with you." His words hit me like a physical blow, and I stumble back, my vision blurring with tears. But even through the pain, I feel a flicker of something else. Something I haven't felt in a long time. Rage. Pure, unadulterated rage. And as I stand there, watching the man I once loved walk away from me, I make a vow to myself. I will make him pay for what he's done. I will make him suffer the way he's made me suffer. And I know just how to do it. Ethan's betrayal cuts deep, but I refuse to let him see how much he's hurt me. Instead, I channel my pain into planning my revenge. And the first step is to gather evidence of his infidelity. I hire a private investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Maria who assures me she'll get the proof I need. And sure enough, within a week, she presents me with a stack of photos and recordings that leave no doubt about Ethan's affair. I confront him with the evidence, my heart pounding in my chest as I watch the color drain from his face. "How could you do this to me, Ethan?" I ask, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "How could you throw away everything we had for some cheap fling?" He looks at me, his eyes cold and unfeeling. "Don't be so dramatic, Vivian. It was just sex. It didn't mean anything." His callousness takes my breath away, and I feel a wave of nausea wash over me. "Just sex? Is that all our marriage was to you?" Just a convenient arrangement until something better came along? He shrugs, his lips curling into a cruel smirk. What can I say? I got bored. And Natalie, well, she knows how to keep things interesting. I shake my head in disbelief, unable to comprehend the depth of his betrayal. You disgust me, Ethan. You're nothing but a selfish, manipulative bastard. And you're a pathetic, clingy little girl who can't accept that her husband has outgrown her, he sneers. Face it, Vivian, you were never enough for me. You never will be. His words hit me like a physical blow, and I reel back, my eyes stinging with tears. But I refuse to let him see me cry. Not anymore. Get out, I whisper, my voice low and dangerous. Get out of my house and out of my life. I never want to see you again. He laughs, a harsh, mocking sound that echoes through the room. Gladly. But don't think you're going to get a dime from me in the divorce. I'll make sure you end up with nothing, Vivian. Nothing. With that, he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, my body shaking with silent sobs as the reality of what's just happened washes over me. But even through the pain, I feel a flicker of something else. Something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Because I know something Ethan doesn't. Something that will change everything. I've won the lottery. 2 weeks ago, on a whim, I bought a ticket for the Powerball jackpot, and against all odds, I hit the jackpot. $10 million, all mine. I've kept the news to myself, not wanting to give Ethan any reason to suspect that I might be planning something. But now, as I sit on the floor of our once-shared home, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make Ethan pay for what he's done. I'm going to hit him where it hurts the most, his wallet. I hire the best divorce attorney in town, a shark named Jack, who assures me he'll make sure I get everything I'm entitled to. And with the evidence of Ethan's infidelity on my side, he tells me I have a strong case for a generous settlement. But I don't want Ethan's money. I want to make him suffer. I want to watch him squirm as he realizes just how much he's underestimated me. And so, on the day of our divorce hearing, I walk into the courtroom with my head held high, my lottery ticket tucked safely in my purse. I watch as Ethan smirks at me from across the room, confident that he's going to walk away with everything. But then I take the stand, and I tell the judge everything. I tell him about Ethan's affair, about his cruel treatment of me throughout our marriage. And then, with a triumphant smile, I pull out my lottery ticket and hold it up for the world to see. I don't want a dime from this man, Your Honor, I say, my voice ringing out clear and strong. I have all the money I need, and then some. All I want is my freedom, and the satisfaction of knowing that Ethan will never be able to hurt me again. The look on Ethan's face as the judge grants me a divorce and orders him to pay my legal fees is one I'll never forget. And as I walk out of the courtroom, my head held high and my heart finally free, I know that I've won. Not just the lottery, but my life back. And that's a prize worth more than all the money in the world. With the divorce finalized and my lottery winnings secure, I feel a sense of freedom I haven't known in years. But even as I revel in my newfound independence, I can't shake the desire to make Ethan pay for what he's done. And so I set my plan into motion. I know that Ethan's law firm handles high-profile clients, including several major banks in the city. And I also know that he's been angling for a promotion to senior partner, a position that would put him in charge of managing those accounts. So I decide to hit him where it hurts. His reputation. I make an appointment at Ethan's bank, the same one he's been schmoozing with for months in the hopes of landing their business. And when I walk in, dressed to the nines and carrying a briefcase full of cash, I make sure everyone knows exactly who I am. I'd like to make a deposit, I say, my voice ringing out loud and clear across the lobby. $10 million to be exact. The teller's eyes widen, and I can see the wheels turning in her head as she tries to figure out who I am and where I got such a large sum of money. Of course, ma'am, she stammers, ushering me into a private room. We'll just need to verify the funds and fill out some paperwork. I smile, settling into a chair and crossing my legs. Take your time. I've got all day. As the teller scurries off to get her manager, I lean back and savor the moment. I can only imagine the look on Ethan's face when he finds out that his ex-wife, the woman he thought he'd broken, is now one of the bank's most valued clients. And sure enough, within minutes, the bank manager is falling all over himself to accommodate me. He offers me everything from a personal financial advisor to a VIP lounge pass, all the while assuring me that my money is in good hands. I just smile and nod, playing the part of the gracious client. But inside, I'm counting down the seconds until Ethan walks through that door. And when he finally does, his face a mask of shock and anger, I know I've won. "Vivian," he hisses, his eyes darting around the room as if he's afraid someone might overhear. "What the hell are you doing here?" I smile, my voice sweet as honey. "Just making a little deposit, darling. I thought you'd be happy to see me supporting your bank." His face turns red, and I can see the veins in his neck bulging with barely contained rage. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Trying to humiliate me in front of my clients?" I shrug, my eyes wide with feigned innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Ethan. I'm just a satisfied customer, here to do business with the best bank in town." He takes a step towards me, his fists clenched at his sides. "You little bitch, you think you're so clever, don't you? Well, let me tell you something. You may have won the lottery, but you're still nothing, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." But before he can say another word, the bank manager clears his throat, his voice nervous but firm. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We don't tolerate that kind of language or behavior towards our clients." Ethan's face goes white, and I can see the panic in his eyes as he realizes the gravity of the situation. He's just insulted and threatened a high-value client in front of his boss, and there's no way he's going to come out of this unscathed. I apologize," he stammers, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean—" But it's too late, the damage is done, and as he's escorted out of the room by security, his head hanging in shame, I feel a rush of triumph that's almost intoxicating. I've hit Ethan where it hurts the most, his ego, and I know that this is just the beginning. He may have taken everything from me, but now I'm the one holding all the cards, and I'm going to make damn sure he never forgets it. News of Ethan's outburst at the bank spreads like wildfire, and within days he's facing disciplinary action from his firm. His clients start to pull their accounts, and his once promising career begins to crumble before his eyes. I watch from afar, savoring every moment of his downfall. But even as I revel in my revenge, I can't help but feel a twinge of something else, something that feels suspiciously like regret. And then one day I receive a phone call that changes everything. "Vivian?" Ethan's voice is weak, broken. "I need to see you, please." I hesitate, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wants to hang up, to leave him to wallow in his own misery. But another part of me, the part that once loved him, can't resist the plea in his voice. "Fine," I say, my voice cold. "But make it quick." We meet at a coffee shop near my old apartment, a place we used to frequent in happier times. Ethan looks like a shell of his former self, his eyes bloodshot and his skin pale. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, "for everything. I know I can't take back what I did, but I need you to know that I'm truly deeply sorry." I stare at him, my heart twisting in my chest. I want to believe him, to forgive him, but I can't. Not after everything he's put me through. "It's too late, Ethan," I say, my voice trembling. "You had your chance, and you blew it. I'm done being your punching bag." He nods, his eyes filling with tears. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm going to get help. I'm going to be a better man, even if it's too late for us." I feel a lump rising in my throat, and I swallow hard. "I hope you do, Ethan, for your sake and for the sake of anyone else who might cross your path." He looks at me, his eyes searching mine. "What about you, Vivian? What are you going to do now?" I take a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. And then, suddenly, I know exactly what I want to do. "I'm going to start a foundation," I say, my voice growing stronger with each word. "A foundation that helps women like me, women who have been beaten down and broken by men like you. I'm going to use my money to make a difference, to help others find their strength and their voice." Ethan stares at me, his eyes wide with surprise. That's amazing, Vivian. I'm proud of you." I nod, my heart swelling with pride. "I'm proud of me too, Ethan, and I'm done letting you or anyone else dictate my worth." We part ways soon after, and as I walk out of the coffee shop, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I know that I'll never forget what Ethan did to me, but I also know that I'm stronger because of it. And as I set to work on my foundation, pouring my heart and soul into helping other women find their power, I realized that this is what I was meant to do all along. I may have started out as a victim, but now I'm a survivor, and I'm going to make damn sure that no one ever forgets it. Months turn into years, and as my foundation grows and thrives, I find myself back in my hometown, teaching at the same high school where I started my career. I'm happy now, truly happy. I've found my purpose, my calling, and I know that everything I went through, every moment of pain and heartbreak was worth it to get me to where I am today. I may not have the perfect life, but I have a life that's all my own. And that's more than enough for me. As I stand in front of my classroom looking out at the eager faces of my students, I can't help but smile. I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do, and no one, not even Ethan, can take that away from me. You're nothing without me, Evelyn. Remember that. Dominic's words cut deep as I cradle our newborn daughter, Aria. I look down at her innocent face, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I feel a wave of despair wash over me. How did I get here? How did I let myself become so trapped, so helpless? I've always been a strong, independent woman, but Dominic has a way of making me feel small and insignificant. Since Aria's birth, his controlling behavior has escalated to new heights. He dictates my every move, from what I wear to who I can see. He even controls our finances, leaving me completely dependent on during my maternity leave. I'm going out, Dominic announces, grabbing his keys from the counter. I expect dinner to be ready when I get back. I nod silently, not daring to argue. I've learned the hard way that defiance only leads to more pain. As the door slams behind him, I let out a shaky breath and hug Aria closer to my chest. I think back to the early days of our relationship when Dominic seemed like the perfect man. Charming, successful, and attentive, he swept me off my feet. Our whirlwind romance led to a quick marriage, and before I knew it, I was pregnant with Aria. But now, as I sit alone in our lavish apartment, surrounded by all the trappings of wealth, I feel more trapped than ever. Dominic's true colors have emerged, and I'm left wondering how I ever fell for his facade. A sudden cry from Aria jolts me back to the present. I rock her gently, whispering soothing words as I try to calm her. But even as I comfort my daughter, I can feel the weight of Dominic's control bearing down on me. I glance at the clock, realizing I only have a few hours before he returns. I need to start dinner, but the thought of facing another evening of his criticism and verbal abuse makes my stomach churn. As I lay Aria down in her crib, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me is a shell of her former self. Dark circles under her eyes, a forced smile masking the pain. I hardly recognize her, but as I watch Aria drift off to sleep, a flicker of determination sparks within me. I can't let my daughter grow up thinking this is normal, that this is what love looks like. I need to find a way out, not just for myself but for her. I take a deep breath and straighten my shoulders. I may feel trapped and helpless now, but I refuse to let Dominic break me. I will find a way to escape his grasp, to build a better life for Aria and myself. As I head to the kitchen to start dinner, I silently vow to myself that this will be the last meal I cook under Dominic's roof. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I will find the strength to break free from this nightmare. For Aria's sake, and for my own, I have to. As I sit in the darkness of Aria's nursery, my mind drifts back to the beginning of my relationship with Dominic. It all seemed so perfect, like a fairy tale come to life. I was 28, a successful young woman with a promising career when I met him at a charity event. He was 35, charming, and incredibly handsome. I was instantly smitten. Our courtship was a whirlwind of expensive dinners, lavish gifts, and grand gestures. Dominic made me feel like I was the center of his universe. He promised me the world, and I believed every word. "Evelyn, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he whispered in my ear as we danced at a gala. "I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." I melted into his arms, convinced that I had found my soulmate. When he proposed just 3 months later, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Our wedding was a grand affair, with no expense spared. I felt like a princess as I walked down the aisle in my designer gown, Dominic waiting for me at the altar with a smile that could light up the room. "I love you, Evelyn. he said as he slipped the ring on my finger. I promise to cherish you forever. I believed him with all my heart. We settled into married life, and for a while everything was perfect. Dominic continued to shower me with attention and gifts, and I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. But then, just a few months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. I was overjoyed, but Dominic's reaction was not what I expected. "A baby now?" he asked, his brow furrowed. I thought we agreed to wait a few years. I was taken aback by his response. We had discussed starting a family, but I didn't realize he had such a specific timeline in mind. "I know it's a bit sooner than we planned, but isn't it wonderful news?" I asked, trying to gauge his reaction. Dominic's face softened, and he pulled me into an embrace. "Of course it is, darling. I'm just surprised, that's all. We'll make it work." But as my pregnancy progressed, I began to notice subtle changes in Dominic's behavior. He became more controlling, more possessive. He started questioning my every move, demanding to know where I was and who I was with at all times. I chalked it up to nerves about impending fatherhood and tried to reassure him that everything would be fine. But deep down, a nagging feeling told me that something wasn't right. When Aria was born, Dominic's behavior only intensified. He criticized everything I did, from the way I changed her diaper to the way I held her. He insisted on being present for every feeding, every bath time, every moment of her life. At first, I thought he was just being an attentive father. But as the weeks turned into months, I realized that his attention was more about control than love. "You're doing it wrong," he would snap as I tried to soothe Aria's cries. "Give her to me. I'll show you how it's done." I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his every mood and whim. I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but I didn't dare complain. I was afraid of what he might do if I pushed back. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I missed. The way he isolated me from my friends and family, the way he made me feel like I was nothing without him. I was so blinded by love that I couldn't see the truth. But now, as I sit in the darkness, watching my daughter sleep, I know I can't let this continue. I have to find a way out, not just for myself, but for Aria. She deserves a better life than this. I just hope I have the strength to do what needs to be done. Aria's cries pierce the night, and I stumble out of bed, exhausted. It's been weeks since I've had a full night's sleep, and the toll is starting to show. As I enter the nursery, I find Dominic already there, holding our daughter. "I've got this," he says, his voice cold. "Go back to bed." I hesitate, wanting to comfort my own child, but the look in Dominic's eyes tells me not to argue. I retreat to our bedroom, feeling helpless and alone. The next morning, I'm in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Dominic storms in, his face contorted with anger. "Why isn't the laundry done?" he demands, holding up a shirt. "I have a big meeting today, and I need this pressed." I glance at the clock, realizing I've lost track of time while caring for Aria. "I'm sorry, I'll do it right now," I say, reaching for the shirt, but Dominic yanks it away, his eyes narrowing. "You're always making excuses." He sneers. "I work hard to provide for this family, and you can't even handle simple household chores." I feel my cheeks burn with shame and frustration. "I'm doing the best I can," I protest weakly. Dominic scoffs. "Your best isn't good enough. I deserve better than this." He storms out of the kitchen, leaving me fighting back tears. I know I should stand up for myself, but I'm too tired, too beaten down. Later that day, I'm trying to soothe a fussy Aria when the phone rings. It's the bank, informing me that my credit card has been declined. Confused, I hang up and log into our online banking account. What I see makes my blood run cold. Our savings account, the one I thought we were using for Aria's college fund, is nearly empty. Thousands of dollars, gone without a trace. I confront Dominic that evening, holding up the bank statement with shaking hands. "What is this?" I demand. "Where did all our money go?" Dominic barely glances at the paper before shrugging. "I had some expenses come up. Business stuff you wouldn't understand." "Business stuff?" I echo, incredulous. "Dominic, that was our daughter's college fund. How could you just spend it without telling me?" He fixes me with a cold stare. "I don't have to tell you anything. I'm the one who earns the money in this family. I'll spend it how I see fit." I reel back as if slapped. "But we're supposed to be partners," I whisper. "We should make these decisions together." Dominic laughs, a harsh, ugly sound. Partners? You're nothing without me, Evelyn. I gave you everything. This house, those clothes, that baby. You owe me. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Is this what our marriage has become? A transaction? A debt to be paid? I turn away, fighting back tears. I'm going to put Arya to bed, I say, my voice trembling. As I rock my daughter to sleep, I feel a sense of despair wash over me. How did I let things get this bad? How did I become so dependent on a man who treats me like a possession? I think of my own mother, who raised me on her own after my father left. She was so strong, so independent. What would she think of me now, trapped in a marriage with a man who doesn't respect me? I kiss Arya's forehead, feeling a fierce surge of love and protectiveness. I can't let her grow up thinking this is normal. I can't let Dominic's poison infect her too. I may be trapped for now, but I won't let him break me. I'll find a way out, no matter what it takes. For Arya's sake and for my own. I'm at my wit's end when I finally meet best friend Scarlett. We've been friends since college, and she's always been there for me, no matter what. I don't know what to do, I confess, my voice breaking. Dominic is controlling every aspect of my life. I feel like I'm suffocating. Scarlett listens patiently, her brow furrowed with concern. Evelyn, this isn't right, she says gently. He shouldn't be treating you like this. I nod, wiping away tears. I know, but I'm scared, Scarlett. He's threatened to take Arya away from me if I try to leave. Scarlett's eyes widen. He can't do that, she insists. You're Arya's mother. You have rights. She helps me gather evidence of Dominic's deceit and verbal abuse. We take screenshots of the bank statements, documenting the missing funds. I start keeping a journal, writing down every hurtful thing he says to me. Armed with this information, I confront Dominic. We need to talk, I say, my voice shaking but determined. He barely looks up from his phone. Can't it wait? I'm busy. No, it can't wait, I insist. Dominic, I know about the money. I know you've been hiding things from me. At this, he finally meets my gaze, his eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? I hold up the bank statements. You've been spending our savings without telling me. Our daughter's college fund, gone. Dominic scoffs. Is that what this is about? It's just money, Evelyn. I'll make more. It's not just about the money, I say, my voice rising. It's about the lying, the secrets. It's about the way you treat me. He stands up, towering over me. The way I treat you? I give you everything, Evelyn. A beautiful home, a comfortable life. And this is how you repay me? By snooping through my things and making accusations? I take a step back, my heart pounding. I'm not making accusations. I'm telling the truth, and I'm done letting you control me. Dominic's face contorts with rage. You ungrateful bitch, he snarls. If you think you can leave me, think again. I'll make sure you never see Arya again. His words hit me like a slap in the face. You can't do that, I whisper, echoing Scarlett's words. Watch me, he says, his voice cold. I have money, connections. I'll bury you in court. You'll be lucky to get visitation, let alone custody. I feel like I can't breathe. The thought of losing Arya is too much to bear. But then I think of the evidence Scarlett and I have gathered. The bank statements, the journal entries, the recordings of Dominic's threats. I straighten my spine, looking him dead in the eye. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Dominic. I have proof of everything you've done, the lies, the abuse. If you try to take Arya away from me, I'll fight you with everything I have. For a moment, Dominic looks stunned. Then his face twists into an ugly sneer. You think you're so clever, don't you? But you're forgetting one thing. I own you, Evelyn. I own everything. And I'll destroy you before I let you leave me. With that, he storms out of the room. Slamming the door behind him, I sink to the floor, my legs shaking. I know this is just the beginning. Dominic won't let me go without a fight, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope. I'm not alone anymore. I have Scarlett, and I have the truth on my side. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my daughter and myself, even if it means going to war with the man I once loved. With Scarlett's help, I begin secretly planning my escape from Dominic's clutches. We meet in quiet coffee shops and secluded parks, always looking over our shoulders for any sign of my husband. You need to start saving money, Scarlett advises. Open a separate bank account, one that Dominic doesn't know about. I nod, jotting down notes in a small, nondescript notebook. I'll start skimming a little bit from the grocery budget each week. He won't notice if I'm careful. Scarlett also helps me document Dominic's abuse. We take photos of the bruises on my arms, the holes he's punched in the walls during his rages. I save every threatening text message, every cruel email. It's during one of these evidence-gathering sessions that I stumble upon a shocking discovery. I'm going through Dominic's email, looking for anything incriminating, when I find a string of messages between him and his secretary, Tessa. At first, I think they're just work-related. But as I read on, my stomach twists with a sickening realization. They're not just colleagues, they're having an affair. I miss you, Tessa writes in one email. Last night was amazing. When can we do it again? Dominic's response is filled with explicit details of their trysts, of the things he wants to do to her. I feel like I'm going to be sick. But even as the betrayal cuts me to the core, I feel a flicker of something else. Hope. If Dominic is cheating on me, that means I have even more leverage against him. I print out the emails with shaking hands, adding them to my growing pile of evidence. Armed with this new information, I finally work up the courage to file for divorce. Scarlett comes with me to the courthouse, holding my hand as I fill out the paperwork. When we return home, Dominic is waiting for us. "Where have you been?" he demands, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. I take a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "I was filing for divorce," I say, my voice steady. "I'm leaving you, Dominic." For a moment he looks stunned. Then his face contorts with rage. "You can't leave me," he snarls. "I won't let you." He takes a step towards me, his fists clenched, but before he can lay a hand on me, Scarlett steps between us. "Don't you dare touch her," she says, her voice like steel. "We have evidence of everything you've done, the abuse, the cheating. If you come near Evelyn or Arya again, we'll go straight to the police." Dominic's eyes widen as he takes in the folder in Scarlett's hand. "You're bluffing," he says, but I can hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Try me," Scarlett replies, her gaze unwavering. For a long moment, they stare each other down. Then Dominic takes a step back, his face twisting into an ugly sneer. "Fine," he spits. "You want a divorce? You've got it, but don't think for a second that this is over. I'll make your life a living hell, Evelyn. You'll be begging me to take you back." With that, he storms out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I collapse onto the couch, my legs shaking. Scarlett sits beside me, pulling me into a tight hug. "You did it," she whispers. "You're free." But even as relief washes over me, I know that this is just the beginning. Dominic won't let me go without a fight. He'll do everything in his power to make me suffer. But for the first time in years, I feel a glimmer of hope. I've taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, my freedom, and I won't let Dominic break me. Not again. Not ever. The divorce proceedings begin, and I steel myself for the battle ahead. Dominic has hired a high-powered attorney, a shark in an expensive suit, but I have Scarlett by my side and a fierce determination to protect my daughter. Our first meeting is tense, with Dominic glaring at me from across the conference room table. His lawyer, a man with slicked-back hair and a predatory smile, leans forward. "Mrs. Hawthorne," he begins, his voice dripping with condescension. "My client is willing to offer you a generous settlement in exchange for your cooperation in keeping this matter private." I feel a flush of anger rising in my cheeks. "Generous?" I repeat, my voice tight. "You mean hush money, to keep me quiet about the abuse, the cheating." Dominic's lawyer smirks. "Let's not throw around accusations, Mrs. Hawthorne. My client denies any wrongdoing." I lean forward, meeting his gaze head-on. "I have proof," I say, my voice steady. "Emails, text messages, photographs. I'm not afraid to use them." For a moment, the lawyer's smug expression falters. Then he recovers, clearing his throat. "Be that as it may, I think we can all agree that a protracted legal battle is in no one's best interests, especially not your daughter's." At the mention of Arya, I feel a stab of fear. Dominic knows she's my weakness, my Achilles heel. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice tight. Dominic leans forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "Joint custody," he says. "And a gag order. You keep your mouth shut about our marriage, and I'll let you see Arya on weekends." I feel like I've been punched in the gut. The thought of being separated from my daughter, of only seeing her a few days a month, is unbearable. But then I think of the alternative, of Arya growing up in a home filled with anger and violence, of learning that love means pain and fear. I take a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "No," I say, my voice ringing with conviction. I won't agree to that. I want full custody, and I want you out of our lives for good. Dominic's face twists with rage. You can't do that, he snarls. I'm her father. I have rights. You lost those rights the first time you raised a hand to me, I say, my voice shaking with anger. The first time you chose your own selfish desires over your family. I slide a folder across the table, watching as Dominic's lawyer flips through the pages with a growing look of unease. This is just the beginning, I say, my voice steady. If you try to fight me on this, I'll make sure the whole world knows what kind of man you really are. For a long moment, Dominic stares at me, his eyes burning with hatred. Then he turns to his lawyer, muttering something under his breath. The lawyer clears his throat, his expression strained. Perhaps we should take a break, he suggests. Reconvene at a later date, when emotions aren't running quite so high. I nod, feeling a rush of triumph. I know this is just the first battle in what will likely be a long and brutal war. But for now, I've won. As I leave the conference room, Scarlett falls into step beside me, her hand on my shoulder. You were amazing in there, she says, her voice filled with pride. I've never seen you so strong, so fearless. I manage a small smile even as my heart races with adrenaline. I had to be, I say, for Arya, for myself. We step out into the bright sunlight, and I take a deep breath of fresh air. It feels like the first time I've been able to breathe freely in years. I know the road ahead will be hard. Dominic won't give up without a fight, and I'll have to be strong, and stronger than I've ever been. But for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I can build a better life for my daughter and myself. A life free from fear, from pain, a life filled with love and laughter and joy, and I'll fight like hell to make that life a reality. The divorce is finalized, and I'm granted full custody of Arya. Dominic is ordered to pay child support and alimony, a fact that leaves him seething with rage. But even as I celebrate my victory, I know that he won't let this go easily. Dominic is a man who hates to lose, who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. I'm proven right just a few days later, when I'm awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of shattering glass. I bolt out of bed, my heart pounding, and race to Arya's room. She's sleeping peacefully, her little face relaxed in slumber. But as I turn to leave, I catch a glimpse of movement outside her window. It's Dominic, his face twisted with fury. He's holding a baseball bat, the shattered remains of the window at his feet. You think you've won? He snarls, his voice slurring with drink. You think you can just take my daughter away from me? I feel a rush of fear, followed quickly by anger. Get out of here, Dominic, I say, my voice shaking. You're violating the restraining order. I'll call the police. He laughs, a harsh, ugly sound. Go ahead, he taunts. Call them. By the time they get here, I'll be long gone, and you'll be left picking up the pieces, just like always. I take a step forward, my fists clenched at my sides. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Dominic. I'm done letting you control me, letting you hurt me. His eyes narrow, and he takes a step closer, the bat raised threateningly. You should be afraid, he growls. I'll make your life a living hell, Evelyn. I'll take Arya away from you, one way or another. But even as he speaks, I feel a sense of calm washing over me. I've spent so long living in fear of this man, letting him dictate my every move, but not anymore. I reach into my pocket, my fingers closing around my phone. I have proof, Dominic, I say, my voice steady. Proof of your abuse, your cheating, your illegal business dealings. If you come near me or Arya again, I'll expose everything. For a moment, he looks stunned. Then his face contorts with rage, and he takes another step forward, the bat raised high. But before he can swing, the sound of sirens fills the air. Red and blue lights flash through the broken window, casting an eerie glow over the room. Dominic freezes, his eyes wide with panic. He looks from me to the window, his grip on the bat slackening. This isn't over, he snarls, backing away. I'll find a way to make you pay, Evelyn. I swear it. With that, he turns and runs, disappearing into the night just as the police cars screech to a halt outside. I sink to the floor, my legs shaking with relief. Arya stirs in her crib, her little face scrunching up in confusion. It's okay, baby, I whisper, gathering her into my arms. Mommy's here. You're safe now. The police take my statement, and I show them the evidence I've gathered against Dominic. They assure me that they'll do everything in their power to keep us safe, to make sure he never comes near us again. But even as I nod and thank them, I know that this is just the beginning. Dominic is a man who doesn't know how to lose, who will stop at nothing to get his revenge. I'll have to be vigilant, always looking over my shoulder, always ready for the next attack. But I'm not alone anymore. I have Scarlett and the support of the law on my side. And most importantly, I have Arya, my beautiful, innocent daughter, who deserves a life free from fear and pain. I'll do whatever it takes to give her that life, to build a future for us that's filled with love and laughter and joy, even if it means facing down the devil himself. 5 years have passed since that fateful night when Dominic shattered our window and threatened to take Arya away from me. In that time, I've worked hard to rebuild my life, to create a safe and happy home for my daughter. I've thrown myself into my career, working my way up the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm. My colleagues admire my tenacity, my ability to think outside the box, and come up with creative solutions to even the toughest challenges. But my greatest achievement is Arya. She's grown into a bright, curious 5-year-old with her father's dark hair and my green eyes. She's the light of my life, the reason I get up every morning and face the world with a smile. We have a little routine, Arya and I. Every morning I make her breakfast and pack her lunch, then walk her to the bus stop for kindergarten. In the evenings we curl up on the couch and read stories together, or have dance parties in the living room. It's a simple life, but it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. One day, as I'm walking Arya to the bus stop, I bump into a familiar face. It's Liam, a single father who lives down the street. I've seen him around the neighborhood, always with his little boy, Max, in tow. "Evelyn, right?" he says, smiling warmly. "I don't think we've officially met. I'm Liam." I shake his hand, feeling a flutter of something in my chest. "Nice to meet you, Liam. This is my daughter, Arya." Arya waves shyly, hiding behind my leg. Liam crouches down to her level, his eyes twinkling. "Hi there, Arya. I like your backpack. Is that a unicorn?" Arya nods, a tiny smile spreading across her face. "Yeah, unicorns are my favorite." Liam grins, standing back up. "Well, maybe we can all get together for a playdate sometime. Max loves unicorns, too." I find myself nodding, a warm feeling spreading through my chest. "That would be great. Here, let me give you my number." As we exchange numbers, I can't help but feel a spark of something. A connection, a sense of possibility. Over the next few weeks, Liam and I start spending more time together. We take the kids to the park, have picnics in the backyard. He's kind and funny and thoughtful, always ready with a joke or a helping hand. And he's an amazing father. I watch him with Max, the way he listens patiently to his son's endless chatter, the way he gets down on the floor to play with him. It's clear that he loves his boy with every fiber of his being. Slowly but surely, I feel myself falling for him, and for the first time in a long time, I allow myself to imagine a future that's not just about survival, but about happiness. But even as I bask in the glow of new love, I can't shake the feeling that Dominic is still out there, waiting for his chance to strike. And I'm right. One evening, as Liam and I are enjoying a quiet dinner while the kids play in the living room, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find Dominic standing there, his face haggard and his eyes wild. "Evelyn," he says, his voice raspy, "I need to talk to you." I feel a rush of fear, followed quickly by anger. "What are you doing here, Dominic? You know you're not supposed to come near me or Arya." He holds up his hands, his expression pleading. I know. But I had to see you. I've lost everything, Evelyn, my job, my money, even Tessa left me. I have nothing left." For a moment, I feel a flicker of pity, but then I remember all the pain he's caused, all the fear and heartache. "I'm sorry, Dominic," I say, my voice firm, "but that's not my problem anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." His face twists with rage, and he takes a step forward. "You did this to me, you bitch. You ruined my life." But before he can say another word, Liam is there, stepping between us. "I think you should leave," he says, his voice calm but firm, "before I call the police." Dominic looks from Liam to me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation, but finally he turns and walks away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As I watch him go, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. I know that he'll always be a part of my past, a shadow that I can never fully escape, but I also know that I'm stronger than he is. I've survived his abuse, his manipulation. I've built a life for myself and my daughter, a life filled with love and joy and possibility. And as I turn back to Liam, to the man who has shown me what true love and partnership can be, I know that I'm finally free. Free to live, to love, to be happy. And that's the greatest revenge of all. You're overreacting as always. Can't you just get over it and move on? Bryce's dismissive words hit me like a slap across the face. I stared at him in disbelief, my chest tightening as the all-too-familiar frustration boiled within me. How many times had I pleaded with him to understand what I was going through with my health issues? How many nights did I cry myself to sleep, longing for his compassion and support? Get over it, I echoed, struggling to keep my voice steady. Bryce, I'm in constant pain. The fatigue is crippling. I can't just get over a chronic condition that modern medicine still doesn't fully comprehend. Bryce rolled his eyes, his expression a mixture of annoyance and indifference. Yeah, I've heard it all before. You really need to stop using that as an excuse for everything. My hands trembled as a wave of anger washed over me. An excuse? Did he truly believe I was making up the suffering I endured day after day, year after year? You know what? I'm done, I said, my voice quivering with pent-up emotion. I'm done trying to make you understand something you clearly have no interest in comprehending. Bryce scoffed and turned his attention back to the television, effectively dismissing me and my struggles once again. I stormed out of the living room, fighting back tears of frustration and hurt. As I made my way to the bedroom, memories of our once loving relationship flooded my mind. Where was the man who had vowed to love and support me through sickness and health? The one who had held me close and promised to always be by my side? That man was long gone, replaced by this shell of a person who seemed to care more about maintaining the perfect facade than truly being there for his wife. I collapsed onto the bed, burying my face in the pillow as sobs racked my body. How had we come to this? How had the love and understanding we once shared disintegrated into this bitter, toxic dynamic? As I lay there, a newfound determination took root within me. I couldn't continue living like this, constantly invalidated and disrespected by the person who was supposed to be my partner in life. Enough was enough. I sat up, wiping away the tears, and reached for the journal I had been keeping over the past few years. With trembling hands, I began to document this latest incident, determined to gather evidence of Bryce's emotional abuse. The dismissive comments, the lack of empathy, the constant belittling of my struggles, I would record it all. This would be the start of my journey towards reclaiming my dignity and self-worth. I would no longer be a victim, cowering in the face of Bryce's cruelty. It was time to take a stand, to expose the truth, and to seek justice for the years of pain and neglect I had endured. The words flowed from my pen, fueled by a potent mix of anger, heartache, and a newfound sense of resolve. This was the final straw, the catalyst for the upheaval that was about to unfold. I was done being the silent, suffering wife. It was time for Bryce to face the consequences of his actions. I should have seen the signs earlier, but love can blind even the most perceptive of souls. Bryce and I had been a perfect match in the beginning, two kindred spirits, united in our hopes and dreams for the future. We'd feed off each other's energy, our laughter filling the air as we built the foundation of what we thought would be an unbreakable bond. How naive I had been. The first crack appeared shortly after our wedding, when I began exhibiting strange symptoms that no doctor could properly diagnose. The debilitating fatigue, the widespread pain, the cognitive issues. They all remained an unsolvable mystery, an invisible enemy waging war on my body and mind. At first, Bryce was sympathetic, assuring me that we would get through this together. In sickness and in health, remember, he would say, holding me close as I cried from the frustration of not understanding what was happening to me. Those tender moments became rarer as the years passed, and my condition only worsened. Bryce grew increasingly distant, frustrated by the lack of a clear solution. His patience wore thin, and the man I had fallen in love with slowly faded away, replaced by someone cold and callous. "Quit making excuses and pull yourself together," he snapped one day when I struggled to complete a simple household chore. "You're letting this supposed illness control your life." Yeah, I tried to explain, to make him understand the genuine anguish I was experiencing, but he would hear none of it. In his eyes, I had become a burden, a blight on the perfect life he had envisioned for us. Outward appearances meant everything to Bryce. He couldn't bear the thought of our family being perceived as anything less than perfect, even as our son Derek grew increasingly aware of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. "Why is Dad always so angry with you?" Derek asked me once, his eyes full of concern. I forced a smile, not wanting to tarnish his image of his father. "It's nothing, sweetheart. He's just under a lot of stress at work." The lies piled up, each one a brick in the facade Bryce was so desperate to maintain. We were the perfect family, with the perfect house and the perfect life. At least, that's what we wanted the world to believe. Behind closed doors, the reality was far more sinister. "You're pathetic, you know that?" Bryce snarled at me one evening after I had spent the day bedridden, too weak and in too much pain to function. "This is just a convenient way for you to be lazy and avoid your responsibilities." His words cut deeper than any knife, reopening the wounds of inadequacy that his emotional abuse had inflicted over the years. I wanted to scream, to hurl every ounce of anguish back in his face, but the strength had long since been drained from me. So I remained silent, my tears the only outward display of the turmoil raging within. That's when I knew the man I had married was gone, consumed by his obsession with maintaining the illusion of perfection. The love and support I had once treasured had been replaced by disdain and contempt, all because I couldn't meet his warped expectations. In that moment, a small spark of defiance ignited within me, a glimmer of determination that would grow into an all-consuming blaze. I wouldn't stay trapped in this toxic cycle any longer. One way or another, I would strip away Bryce's carefully constructed facade and expose the ugliness that festered beneath. He would face the consequences of his actions, of the years of emotional torment he had inflicted upon me. The road ahead would be arduous, but I knew in my heart that it was the only path to reclaiming my dignity and self-worth. The mask of perfection would shatter, and the truth would finally be laid bare, no matter the cost. The facade Bryce had so carefully constructed was beginning to crumble. As my health deteriorated further, it became impossible for me to keep up the charade of being the perfect wife and homemaker. Simple tasks like cooking and cleaning left me utterly drained, my body feeling like a leadweight that refused to cooperate. Of course, this only added fuel to Bryce's disdain. "What's the point of having you around if you can't even take care of basic household duties?" he sneered, surveying the pile of unwashed dishes in the sink. I wanted to explain, to make him understand the sheer effort it took for me just to get through each day, but I knew it would fall on deaf ears. Bryce had made up his mind about my condition long ago. In his eyes, it was nothing more than a convenient excuse. "I'm sorry," I mustered, hating how weak and defeated I sounded. "I'll try harder, I promise." Bryce scoffed and shook his head in disgust. "Save your empty promises. You've been trying harder for years, yet nothing ever changes." The venom in his words cut deep, but I remained silent, too emotionally and physically drained to engage in another fruitless argument. As the weeks passed, Bryce's insults and complaints escalated, each one chipping away at what little self-worth I had left. I found solace in my journal, pouring out the anguish and frustration that I couldn't voice aloud. It was during one of these writing sessions that Derek knocked on my bedroom door, a concerned look etched on his face. "Mom, are you okay? I heard Dad yelling at you again." I fought back the tears that threatened to spill and forced a reassuring smile. "Everything's fine, honey. Your father's just been under a lot of stress lately." Derek didn't look convinced, but he nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a sadness that no child should ever have to bear. As he left, I couldn't help but wonder how much of Bryce's behavior he had witnessed over the years. Had I been naive in thinking I could shield him from the harsh reality of our crumbling marriage? That night, as Bryce slept soundly beside me, I stayed awake, my mind racing with a newfound determination. I couldn't continue living like this, constantly demeaned and belittled by the man who was supposed to love and cherish me. Enough was enough. I reached for my journal, the pages now filled with a meticulous documentation of Bryce's emotional abuse. Every cutting remark, every dismissive gesture, every act of cruelty laid bare in ink. As I flipped through the pages, a sense of empowerment washed over me. This was my evidence, my ammunition in the battle I was about to wage against the man who had made my life a living hell. I wouldn't be the silent, suffering wife any longer. It was time to take action, to expose Bryce for the monster he had become and seek justice for the years of pain and neglect he had inflicted upon me. The first step would be to confide in my sister, Jenna. She had always been my rock, my unwavering support system through the darkest of times. With her by my side, I knew I would have the strength to face whatever lay ahead. A plan began to form in my mind, the pieces slowly falling into place. I would gather every shred of evidence, every damning proof of Bryce's vile behavior, until I had an airtight case against him. Then, and only then, would I strike, shattering his carefully constructed facade and exposing the ugliness that festered beneath. It would be a long and arduous road, but I was ready to fight. For too long, I had been the victim, cowering in fear and shame. But no more. This time, justice would be mine. Our 20th wedding anniversary should have been a joyous occasion, a celebration of the love and commitment that had carried us through 2 decades of marriage. Instead, it became a painful reminder of how far Bryce and I had drifted apart. He had insisted on going out to an upscale restaurant, wanting to maintain the facade of a happy, successful couple in front of our friends and family. I had reluctantly agreed, knowing full well that any objection on my part would only ignite another heated argument. As I slowly made my way down the stairs, the simple act of getting dressed and ready had left me utterly drained. Bryce was waiting at the bottom, drumming his fingers impatiently against his watch. "It's about time," he grumbled, eyeing my weary appearance with disdain. "We're already running late." I mustered an apologetic smile, too exhausted to offer any excuses. We made our way to the restaurant in silence, the tension between us palpable. The evening only grew more excruciating as it progressed. Bryce basked in the attention of our guests, regaling them with tales of his career successes, while I sat quietly, sipping water to quell the nausea that had taken hold. At one point, our friend Jennifer turned to me with a warm smile. "Marla, you must be so proud of Bryce and everything he's accomplished." Before I could respond, Bryce cut in with a bitter chuckle. "If only she put in half as much effort into our marriage as I do at work." The table fell silent, a collective tension hanging in the air. I felt the blood drain from my face as Bryce's words sank in, each one a dagger to my already fragile heart. "Excuse me?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Bryce shook his head in mock disappointment. "Come on, Marla. We all know you've been using your little condition as an excuse to be lazy and neglect your duties as a wife." The venom in his tone was unmistakable, laying bare the contempt he harbored for me and my struggles. I wanted to scream, to hurl his cruelty back in his face, but the shock had rendered me mute. Our friends and family shifted uncomfortably, averting their gazes as the once celebratory atmosphere turned toxic. No one dared to intervene, to call out Bryce's abhorrent behavior. He leaned back in his chair, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. "See? She can't even defend herself. Pathetic." Those words would haunt me for years to come, searing themselves into my memory like a brand. In that moment, everything became crystallized. The years of emotional abuse, the gaslighting, the utter disregard for my well-being. As I sat there, humiliated and defeated, something within me shifted. A fire ignited in the depths of my soul, a burning rage that had been simmering for far too long. Enough was enough. I would no longer be Bryce's punching bag, his victim to be ridiculed and demeaned at his whim. The gloves were coming off, and I would stop at nothing to bring him to his knees, to make him suffer as he had made me suffer for so long. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, my mind already plotting my vengeance. Bryce continued to revel in his cruelty, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. As we arrived home, I went straight to my room, locking the door behind me. I reached for my journal, my hands trembling, as I began to document every agonizing detail of the night's events. This would be the tipping point, the catalyst that would set my plan into motion. Bryce had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and he would pay dearly for his transgressions. I would gather every shred of evidence, every recorded instance of his emotional and psychological torture. Then, when the time was right, I would unleash it all upon him, shattering his world and leaving him to contend with the consequences of his actions. No more suffering in silence, no more being the victim. It was time for Bryce to face the wrath he had so recklessly provoked. In the days following our disastrous anniversary dinner, I could feel a shift taking place within me. The years of pent-up anger and resentment had finally reached a boiling point, igniting a fire that burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns. Bryce, oblivious as ever, carried on as if nothing had happened. He went about his daily routine, leaving for work each morning with a casual, "See you later," tossed over his shoulder. Meanwhile, I stewed in my righteous fury, meticulously documenting every instance of his cruelty in my journal. It was during one of these writing sessions that Jenna stopped by unannounced. She took one look at my reddened eyes and the turmoil etched into my features before enveloping me in a tight embrace. "Oh, Marla," she murmured, her voice laced with concern. "What's going on?" I pulled away, steeling myself against the torrent of emotion that threatened to spill forth. "It's Bryce," I began, the words tumbling out in a rush. He humiliated me, Jenna, in front of everyone at our anniversary dinner." Jenna's brow furrowed as I recounted the painful details, her expression darkening with each word. By the time I had finished, her hands were balled into tight fists, trembling with barely contained rage. "That bastard," she hissed, her eyes blazing with a protective fury. "How could he treat you like that? After everything you've been through?" I shook my head, feeling a sudden surge of determination. "I can't live like this anymore, Jenna. The emotional abuse, the constant belittling, it has to stop." Jenna nodded, her jaw set in a firm line. "You're right. Enough is enough. What are you going to do?" A plan had already begun to take shape in my mind, a meticulously crafted blueprint for revenge. "I'm going to gather evidence," I explained, my voice steady and resolute. "Every recording, every journal entry, every shred of proof of Bryce's cruelty. Then, when the time is right, I'm going to unleash it all and watch his world crumble around him." Jenna's eyes widened, a mixture of shock and admiration flickering across her features. "Marla, are you sure about this? This is a nuclear option. There's no going back once you pull the trigger." I nodded, my jaw clenched with grim determination. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Bryce needs to face the consequences of his actions, of the years of emotional torture he's put me through. He needs to be exposed for the monster he truly is. A slow smile spread across Jenna's face, a fierce pride radiating from her very being. "Okay, sis, I'm in. Whatever you need, I've got your back." Relief washed over me, knowing that I wouldn't be facing this battle alone. With Jenna by my side, I felt an overwhelming sense of strength, a certainty that I would emerge victorious. Over the next few weeks, we worked tirelessly, gathering every scrap of evidence we could find. Journals, recordings, photographs, nothing was left out. We built an ironclad case against Bryce, one that would leave no room for doubt or denial. As our arsenal grew, so too did my sense of empowerment. The fear and shame that had once shackled me began to dissipate, replaced by a burning desire for justice and retribution. Bryce remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing, carrying on with his daily routine as if nothing were amiss. He would sneer at me whenever our paths crossed, his lips curling in a contemptuous sneer that only fueled my determination. "What's the matter, Marla?" he would taunt. "Still wallowing in self-pity, I see." I would meet his gaze, unflinching, biting back the biting retort that danced on the tip of my tongue. Soon, I told myself. Soon, he would pay for every ounce of pain and humiliation he had inflicted upon me. As the final pieces of our plan fell into place, I felt a sense of exhilaration coursing through my veins. The day of reckoning was fast approaching, and Bryce had no idea what was in store. He had made the mistake of underestimating me, of believing that I would cower and submit to his abuse forever. But no more. This time, I would be the one holding all the cards, and Bryce would learn the true meaning of suffering. The facade he had so carefully constructed was about to come crashing down, and I would be the one wielding the sledgehammer. The day of reckoning had finally arrived, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Jenna and I had spent weeks meticulously planning every detail, leaving no stone unturned in our quest for justice. It was the annual Wyatt family reunion, a gathering that Bryce had always insisted on attending, despite our crumbling marriage. This year, however, the event would serve as the perfect stage for his downfall. As we pulled into the driveway of my parents' home, I could see the familiar faces of extended family members already gathered on the lawn. Bryce plastered on his usual charming smile, ever the master of deception. "Remember, honey," he murmured, leaning in close, "we have to keep up appearances. No need to burden everyone with our personal issues." I fought back the urge to recoil from his touch, nodding in feigned agreement. Little did he know, the facade he had so carefully cultivated was about to be shattered beyond repair. We mingled with the crowd, making small talk and accepting well wishes from relatives we hadn't seen in ages. All the while, Jenna and I exchanged covert glances, silently signaling that it was time to put our plan into motion. After the initial greetings had concluded, Jenna cleared her throat, calling for everyone's attention. "If I could have a moment, please," she began, her voice ringing out across the lawn. "There's something important that needs to be addressed." Bryce shot me a quizzical look, but I remained impassive, my expression betraying nothing. "For too long, a grave injustice has been allowed to fester within our family," Jenna continued, her gaze sweeping across the gathered crowd. "An injustice that we can no longer turn a blind eye to." Murmurs of confusion rippled through the crowd, but Jenna pressed on undeterred. "Bryce Wyatt has been emotionally and psychologically abusing his wife, Marla, for years. Today, we're going to put an end to his cruelty, once and for all." A hush fell over the gathering as Jenna's words sank in. Bryce's face contorted in a mixture of shock and outrage, but before he could interject, Jenna was already unveiling our carefully curated evidence. Audio recordings of Bryce's vicious tirades filled the air, his voice dripping with venom and contempt as he hurled insult after insult at me. Documented journal entries detailing the years of emotional torment were passed around, laying bare the depths of his cruelty. And then, the pièce de résistance, the video footage from our anniversary dinner, capturing Bryce's public humiliation in all its excruciating detail. As the scene played out on the screen, gasps and murmurs of outrage echoed through the crowd. Bryce stood frozen, his mouth agape as the carefully constructed facade he had so meticulously maintained came crashing down around him. "How could you?" My mother's voice cut through the tension, her eyes brimming with tears. "How could you treat my daughter that way?" Bryce stammered, grasping for an excuse, but no words came. He was a cornered animal, his true nature finally exposed for all to see. One by one, family members turned their backs on him, their expressions a mix of disgust and disbelief. Bryce's once charming demeanor had been stripped away, revealing the ugly truth that had been lurking beneath all along. As the weight of his actions bore down upon him, Bryce's veneer of confidence crumbled. He turned to me, his eyes pleading for mercy, for understanding. "Marla, please," he began, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "Enough," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "You've had your chance to be a decent human being, and you squandered it. Now you're going to face the consequences of your actions." Bryce opened his mouth to protest, but thought better of it. In that moment, he knew he had lost the respect of his family, lost the facade of perfection he had so desperately clung to, lost any semblance of control over the situation. As he slunk away, a broken and defeated man, I felt a surge of vindication wash over me. Justice had been served, and the years of suffering and humiliation had finally been avenged. Jenna pulled me into a fierce embrace, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, sis," she whispered. "You took that bastard down." I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but for the first time in years I felt truly free. Free from the shackles of Bryce's emotional abuse, free to reclaim my life and dignity. As the crowd dispersed, offering words of support and encouragement, I knew that this was just the beginning. Bryce's downfall was merely the first step in a journey towards healing and empowerment, and I was ready to embrace it, one step at a time. In the days following the explosive family reunion, the fallout from Bryce's exposure was swift and unrelenting. His life, once so meticulously constructed to project an image of perfection, lay in shattered ruins around him. I, on the other hand, felt a sense of liberation unlike anything I had experienced before. For years I had been shackled by Bryce's emotional abuse, my spirit slowly eroded by his cruelty. But now, with the truth laid bare, I was finally free. The first order of business was securing a divorce. Jenna had put me in touch with a formidable legal team, and within a matter of days the paperwork was filed. Bryce, still reeling from the public humiliation, offered little resistance. "You're making a mistake," he muttered during one of our brief encounters, his eyes downcast and defeated. "Think about what this will do to Derek." I leveled my gaze at him, feeling no shred of sympathy for the man who had tormented me for years. "I am thinking about Derek," I replied, my voice unwavering, "and I'm doing what's best for him, removing him from an environment of toxicity and abuse." Bryce flinched as if he had been struck, but I pressed on, relentless. "You've only got yourself to blame for this, Bryce. Your actions have consequences, whether you choose to acknowledge them or not." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him to stew in the wreckage of his own making. As news of our impending divorce spread, the backlash against Bryce intensified. Friends and colleagues who had once praised his accomplishments now distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with a man exposed as an emotional abuser. Even Derek, our once doting son, could no longer bring himself to look his father in the eye. "How could you treat Mom like that?" he asked during one of their strained encounters, his voice thick with emotion. "She sacrificed everything for this family, and you just... Words failed him, but his expression spoke volumes. The hero worship he had once held for Bryce had been shattered, replaced by a profound sense of disappointment and betrayal. Bryce, for his part, tried to cling to the tattered remnants of his former life. He lashed out at me, accusing me of turning his own family against him, of poisoning their minds with lies and deceit. "You're a vindictive, spiteful woman," he snarled during one of his tirades. "You'll regret this, Marla. Mark my words." But his threats rang hollow, devoid of the power and menace they once held. I simply stared back at him, unmoved by his pathetic attempts at intimidation. "I don't regret a thing, Bryce," I replied, my voice laced with a steely resolve. "For the first time in years, I'm living in the truth, something you've clearly never been able to handle." His face contorted in a mask of rage, but I had already turned away, leaving him to wallow in his own self-pity and delusion. With each passing day, Bryce's world continued to crumble around him. His once thriving career began to unravel as clients and business partners severed ties, unwilling to be associated with such a tarnished reputation. It was a sight to behold, watching this once proud man brought to his knees by the very demons he had unleashed upon me. And yet, I felt no pity, no shred of remorse for the suffering he now endured. This was justice, pure and simple, a reckoning long overdue. As the divorce proceedings neared their conclusion, I found myself reflecting on the long and arduous journey that had led me to this point. The years of suffering, the constant belittling and emotional abuse, the endless nights spent wondering where the man I had married had gone. But now, as I prepared to embark on a new chapter of my life, those memories seemed to fade into the distance. The shackles that had once bound me had been broken, and I was finally free to spread my wings and soar. Jenna pulled me into a fierce embrace as the final papers were signed, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and relief. "You did it, sis," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You survived the storm, and you came out stronger on the other side." I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that better days lay ahead, free from the toxicity and cruelty that had once defined my existence. As I stepped out into the world, a newfound sense of empowerment coursed through my veins. I was a survivor, a warrior who had faced the darkness head-on and emerged victorious. And Bryce? Well, he was nothing more than a footnote in my story, a mere obstacle that had been overcome, a reminder of the strength and resilience that burned within me. The future was mine to shape, and I intended to seize it with both hands, leaving the pain and suffering of the past far behind me. A new chapter was about to begin, and I couldn't wait to see what it had in store. Chapter 8: A New Beginning. The divorce had been finalized, and with it, a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I was officially free from the shackles of Bryce's emotional abuse, free to start anew and reshape my life on my own terms. Of course, that didn't mean the process was easy. There were still hurdles to overcome, lingering scars from years of torment that would take time to heal. but I was committed to the journey, fueled by a newfound sense of determination and self-worth. The first order of business was securing a favorable settlement, one that would provide me with the financial means to build the life I deserved. Jenna's legal team had proven their mettle, negotiating a generous payout that encompassed a sizable portion of our shared assets. "You earned every penny of this, Marla," Jenna assured me as we reviewed the settlement details. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I nodded, still somewhat in disbelief that this chapter of my life was truly coming to a close. For so long I had been trapped in a cycle of fear and self-doubt, conditioned by Bryce's emotional manipulations to believe that I deserved nothing better. But now, with the evidence of his cruelty laid bare and the law on my side, I could finally break free from those toxic thought patterns. I was worthy of happiness, of respect, of building a life on my own terms. With the financial security provided by the settlement, I made the decision to invest a portion of the funds into a cause close to my heart, a foundation dedicated to supporting others suffering from the same chronic condition that had once been the catalyst for Bryce's abuse. It was a way for me to turn my pain into purpose, to ensure that no one else would have to endure the isolation and emotional torment that I had faced for so many years. "This is amazing, Mom," Derek said, his eyes shining with pride as we toured the Foundation's newly opened headquarters. "I can't think of a better way to help people and raise awareness." I pulled him into a tight embrace, overwhelmed by the surge of emotions welling up within me. For too long, I had shielded Derek from the harsh realities of my marriage, desperate to preserve his image of his father. But now, with the truth laid bare, we were able to forge a deeper connection, built on honesty and mutual respect. "Thank you, sweetheart," I murmured, fighting back tears of joy. "Your support means everything to me." As the foundation took shape and our outreach efforts began in earnest, I found myself bearing witness to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. The stories I encountered, the tales of perseverance in the face of overwhelming adversity, only served to strengthen my own resolve. I was no longer the broken, downtrodden woman who had once cowered in fear of her husband's wrath. I was a survivor, a warrior who had emerged from the ashes of emotional abuse, stronger and more determined than ever before. And Bryce? Well, his fate had been sealed the moment he chose to prioritize his own selfish desires over the well-being of his family. The once powerful businessman had become a pariah, his reputation in tatters and his professional prospects all but non-existent. I caught glimpses of him from time to time, a mere shadow of his former self, disheveled, haunted by the demons of his own making. Our paths would cross, and for a fleeting moment our eyes would meet, a silent acknowledgement of the chasm that now separated us. But I felt no pity, no remorse for the man who had inflicted so much pain and suffering upon me. This was the bed he had made for himself, and now he would lie in it, forever haunted by the consequences of his actions. As for me, I was focused on the future, a future that seemed brighter and more promising with each passing day. The foundation continued to grow, its reach extending to communities across the country, offering solace and support to those who had once felt so alone. And at the center of it all was a woman reborn, a phoenix risen from the ashes of emotional turmoil, spreading her wings and soaring towards new horizons. It was a new beginning, a fresh start that had been hard-won through years of struggle and perseverance. And as I looked ahead, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this point. The road had been long and arduous, but in the end, justice had prevailed. I had reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my sense of self-worth, and for that, I would be forever grateful. A new chapter was unfolding, and I intended to embrace it wholeheartedly, leaving the pain and anguish of the past firmly behind me. The future was mine, and I couldn't wait to see what it had in store.